The Mahabharata, translated by K.M. Ganguly, the dicing and the sequel to dicing, selections from the Sabha Parva. Page number 3, the dicing and the sequel to dicing, section 45. Vaishampayana said, when that foremost of sacrifices, the Rajasuya, so difficult of accomplishment, was completed, Vyasa, surrounded by his disciples, presented himself before Yudhishthira. The Yudhishthira, upon beholding him, quickly rose from his seat, surrounded by his brothers, and worshipped the rishi, who was his grandfather, with water to wash his feet and the offer of a seat. The illustrious one, having taken his seat on a costly carpet inlaid with gold, addressed King Yudhishthira the Just, and said, take your seat. And after the king had taken his seat, surrounded by his brothers, the illustrious Vyasa, truthful in speech, said, O son of Kunti, you grow from good fortune. You have obtained imperial sway so difficult of acquisition. And O perpetuator of the Kuru race, all the Kauravas have prospered in consequence of you. O Emperor, I have been duly worshipped. I desire now to go with your leave. King Yudhishthira the Just, thus addressed by the rishi of dark hue, saluted him, his grandfather, and touching his feet, said, O chief of men, a doubt difficult of being dispelled has risen within me. O bull among regenerations, save you there is none to remove it. The illustrious Rishi Narada said that, in brackets, as a consequence of the Rajasuya sacrifice, 3 kinds of potents, viz. Celestial, atmospherical, and terrestrial, once happen. O grandsire, have those potents been ended by the fall of king of the Chedis? Vaishampayana continued, hearing these words of the king, the exalted son of Parasara, the island-born Vyasa of dark hue, spoke these words. For 13 years, O king, those portents will bear mighty consequences ending in destruction. O king of kings, of all the Kshatriyas, in course of time, O bull of the Bharata race, making you the sole cause, the assembled Kshatriyas of the world will be destroyed. O Bharata, for the sins of Duryodhana and through the might of Bhima and Arjuna. In your dream, O king of kings, you will behold towards the end of this night the blue-throated Bhava, the slayer of Tripura, ever absorbed in meditation, having the bull for his mark, drinking off the human skull, and fierce and terrible, that lord of all creatures, that god of gods, the husband of Uma, otherwise called Hara and Sarva, and Risha, armed with the trident and the bow, called Pinaka, and attired in tiger skin. And you will behold Shiva, tall and white as the Kailasa cliff, and seated on his bull, gazing unceasingly towards the direction, in brackets, south, presided over by the king of Pitris. Even this will be the dream you will dream today, O king of kings. Do not grieve for dreaming such a dream. None can rise superior to the influence of time. Blessed be thou. I will now proceed towards the Kailasa mountain. Rule thou the earth with vigilance and steadiness, patiently bearing every privation. Vaishampayana continued. Having said this, the illustrious and the island-born Vyasa of dark hue, accompanied by his disciples, ever following the dictates of the Vedas, proceeded towards Kailasa. And after the grandfather had thus gone away, the king, afflicted with anxiety and grief, began to think continuously upon what the rishi has said. And he said to himself, indeed, what the rishi has said must come to pass. We will succeed in warding off the fates by exertion alone. Then Yudhishthira, endued with great energy and addressing all his brothers, said, Ye tigers among men, ye have heard that what the island-born rishi has told me. Having heard the words of the rishi, I have arrived at this firm resolution, viz. That I should die, as I am obtained to be the cause of the destruction of all Kshatriyas. You, my dear ones, if time has intended, so what need is there for me to live? Hearing these words of the king, Arjuna replied, O king, yield not yourself to this terrible depression that is destructive of reason. Mustering fortitude, O great king, do what would be beneficial. Yudhishthira then, firm in truth, thinking all the while of Dvaipayana's words, answered his brothers thus, Blessed be you. Listen to my vow from this day. For 13 years, whatever purpose have I to live for, I shall not speak a hard word to my brothers or to any kings of the earth. Living under the command of my relatives, I shall practice virtue, exemplifying my vow. If I live in this way, making no distinction between my own children and others, there will be no disagreement in brackets between me and others. It is a disagreement that is the cause of war in the world. Keeping war at a distance and ever doing what is agreeable to others, evil reputation will not be mine in the world, you bulls among men. Hearing these words of their eldest brother, the Pandavas, always engaged in doing what was agreeable to him, approved of them. And Yudhishthira the just, having pledged so, along with his brothers in the midst of that assembly, gratified his priests and also the gods with due ceremonies. And O bull of the Bharata race, after all the monarchs had gone away, Yudhishthira, along with his brothers, having performed the usual auspicious rites, accompanied by his ministers, entered his own palace. And O ruler of men, King Duryodhana and Shakuni, the son of Suvala, continued to dwell in that delightful assembly house. Section 46. Vaishampayana said, that bull among men, Duryodhana, continued to dwell in that assembly house, in brackets of the Pandavas, and with Shakuni, the Kuru prince, slowly examined the whole of that mansion, and the Kuru prince beheld in it many celestial designs, which he had never seen before in the city, called after the elephant Hastinapur. And one day King Duryodhana is in going around that mansion came upon a crystal surface, and the king, from ignorance, mistaking it for a pool of water, drew up his clothes. And afterwards, finding out his mistake, the king wandered about the mansion in great sorrow. And some time after, the king, mistaking a lake of crystal water adorned with lotuses of crystal petals for land, fell into it with all his clothes on. Beholding Duryodhana fallen into the lake, the mighty Bhima laughed aloud, as also the menials of the palace. And the servants, at the command of the king, soon brought him dry and handsome clothes. Beholding the plight of Duryodhana, the mighty Bhima and Arjuna, and both the twins, all laughed loud. Being unused to putting up with insults, page number 6, Duryodhana could not bear the laugh of theirs. Concealing his emotions, he even did not cast his looks on them. And beholding the monarch once more draw up his clothes to cross a piece of dry land which he had mistaken for water, they all laughed again. And the king some time after mistook a closed door made of crystal as open, and as he was about to pass through it, his head struck against it, and he stood with his brain reeling. And mistaking as closed another door made of crystal that was really open, the king, in attempting to open it with his stretched hands, tumbled down. And coming upon another door that was really open, the king, thinking it was closed, bent away from it. And O monarch, King Duryodhana, beholding that vast wealth in the Rajasuya sacrifice, and having become the victim of those numerous errors within the assembly house, at last returned, with the leave of Pandavas, to Hastinapur. And the heart of King Duryodhana, afflicted at sight of the prosperity of the Pandavas, became inclined to sin, as he proceeded towards his city, reflecting on all he had seen and suffered. And beholding the Pandavas happy, and all the kings of the earth paying homage to them, as also everybody, young and old, engaged in doing good unto them, and reflecting also on the splendor and the prosperity of the illustrious sons of Pandu, Duryodhana, the son of Dhritarashtra, became pale. In proceeding to his city with an afflicted heart, the prince thought of nothing else but that of assembly house and that unrivalled prosperity of the wise Yudhishthira. And Duryodhana, the son of Dhritarashtra, was so taken up with his thoughts then that he spoke not a word to Suvala's son, even though the latter addressed him repeatedly. And Shakuni, beholding him absent-minded, said, O Duryodhana, why art thou proceeding thus? Duryodhana replied, O uncle, beholding this whole earth, owning the sway of Yudhishthira, in consequence of the might of the illustrious Arjuna's weapons, and beholding also that sacrifice of the son of Pritha, like unto the sacrifice of Sakra himself, of great glory among the celestials, I, being filled with jealousy and burning day and night, am being dried up like a shallow tank in the summer season. Behold, when Shishupala was slain by the chief of the Satvatas, there was no man to take the side of Shishupala. Consumed by the fire of page number 7 of the Pandava, they all forgave that offense. Otherwise, who is there that could forgive it? That highly improper act of grave consequence done by Vasudeva succeeded in consequence of the power of the illustrious son of Pandu. And so many monarchs also brought with them various kinds of wealth for King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, like tribute paying Vaishyas. Beholding Yudhishthira's prosperity of such splendor, my heart burneth, afflicted with jealousy, although it behoveth me not to be jealous. Having reflected in this way, Duryodhana, as if burnt by fire, addressed the king of Gandhara again and said, I shall throw myself upon a flaming fire, or swallow poison, or drown myself in water. I cannot live. What man is there in the world possessed of vigor, who can bear to see his foes in the enjoyment of prosperity and himself in destitution? Therefore I, who bear to see that accession of prosperity and fortune in my foes, am neither a woman, nor one that is not a woman, neither also a man, nor one that is not a man. Beholding their sovereignty over the world and vast affluence, and also that sacrifice, who is there like me that would not smart under all that? Alone I am incapable of acquiring such royal prosperity, nor do I behold allies that would help me in the matter. It is for this that I am thinking of self-destruction. Beholding that great and serene prosperity of the son of Kunti, I regard faith as supreme and exertions fruitless. O son of Suvala, formerly I strove to compass his destruction, but baffling all my efforts, he hath grown in prosperity, even like the lotus from within a pool of water. It is for this that I regard faith as supreme and exertions fruitless. Behold, the sons of Dhritarashtra are decaying, and the sons of Pritha are growing day by day. Beholding that prosperity of the Pandavas and that assembly house of theirs, and those menials laughing at me, my heart burneth as if it were on fire. Therefore, O uncle, know me now as deeply grieved and filled with jealousy, and speak of it to Dhritarashtra. Section 47. Shakuni said, O Duryodhana, thou shouldst not be jealous of Yudhishthira. The sons of Pandu are enjoying what they deserve. In page number 8, consequence of their own good fortune. O slayer of foes, O great king, thou couldst not destroy them by repeatedly devising numberless plans, many of which thou hadst even put to practice. Those tigers among men, out of sheer luck, escaped all those machinations. They have obtained Draupadi for wife, and Drupada with his sons, as also Vasudeva of great prowess as allies, capable of helping them in subjugating the whole world. And O king, having inherited the paternal share of kingdom without being deprived of it, they have grown in consequence of their own energy. What is there to make thee sorry for this? Having gratified Hastasana, Dhananjaya had obtained the bow Gandiva, and the couple of inexhaustible quivers and many celestial weapons. With that unique bow, and by the strength of his own arms, also he hath brought all the kings of the world under his sway. What is there to make thee sorry for this? Having saved the Asura Maya from a conflagration, Arjuna, the slayer of foes, using both his hands with equal skill, caused him to build that assembly house. And it is for this also that, commanded by Maya, whose grim Rakshasas called Kinkaras supported that assembly house. What is there in this to make thee sorry? Thou hast said, O king, that thou art without allies. This, O Bharata, is not true. These thy brothers are obedient to thee. Drona of great prowess and wielding the large bow, along with his son Radha's son Karna, the great warrior Gautama (Kripa), myself with my brothers, and King Saumadatti, these are thy allies. Uniting thyself with these, conquer thou the whole of the earth. Duryodhana said, O king, with thee, as also with these great warriors, I shall subjugate the Pandavas if it pleases thee. If I can now subjugate them, the world will be mine and all the monarchs and that assembly house so full of wealth. Shaguni replied, Dhananjaya and Vasudeva, Bhimasena and Yudhishthira, Nakula and Sahadeva, and Drupada with his sons, these cannot be vanquished in battle by even the celestials, for they are all great warriors wielding the largest bows, accomplished in weapons and delighting in battle. But, O king, I know the means by which Yudhishthira himself may be vanquished. Listen to me and adopt it. Duryodhana said, Without danger to our friends and other. Page number 9. Illustrious men, O uncle, tell me if there is any way by which I may vanquish him. Shakuni said, The son of Kunti is very fond of dice play, although he doth not know how to play. That king, if asked to play, is ill able to refuse. I am skilful at dice. There is none equal to me in this respect on earth, no, not even in the three worlds, O son of Kuru. Therefore ask him to play at dice. Skilled at dice, I will win his kingdom, and that splendid prosperity of his for thee, O bull among men. But O Duryodhana, represent all this unto the king Dhritarashtra. Commanded by thy father, I will win without doubt the whole of Yudhishthira's possessions. Duryodhana said, O son of Suvala, thou thyself represent properly all this to Dhritarashtra, the chief of the Kurus. I shall not be able to do so. Section 48. Vaishampayana said, O king, impressed with the great Rajasuya sacrifice of King Yudhishthira, Shakuni, the son of Suvala, having learnt before the intentions of Duryodhana while accompanying him in the way from the assembly house, and desirous of saying what was agreeable to him, approached Dhritarashtra endued with great wisdom, and finding the monarch deprived of his eye seated in his throne, told him these words. Know, O great king, O bull of the Bharatha race, that Duryodhana, having lost colour, hath become pale and emaciated and depressed and a prey to anxiety. Why dost thou not, after due inquiry, ascertain the grief that is in the heart of thy eldest son, the grief that is caused by the foe? Dhritarashtra said, Duryodhana, what is the reason of thy great affliction, O son of the Kuru race? If it is fit for me to hear it, then tell me the reason. This Shakuni here says that thou hast lost colour, become pale and emaciated, and a prey to anxiety. I do not know what can be the reason of the sorrow. This vast wealth of mine is at thy control. Thy brothers and all our relations never do anything that is disagreeable to thee. Thou wearest the best apparel and eatest the best food that is prepared with meat. The best of the horse carries thee. What is it, therefore, that has made thee pale and emaciated? Costly beds, beautiful damsels, mansions decked with excellent furniture, and sport of the delightful kind, without doubt, these all wait but at thy command, as in the case of the gods themselves. Therefore, O proud one, why dost thou grieve, O son, as if thou wert destitute? Duryodhana said, I eat and dress myself like a wretch, and pass my time all the while a prey to fierce jealousy. He indeed is a man who, incapable of bearing the pride of the foe, liveth having vanquished that foe with the desire of liberating his own subjects from the tyranny of the foe. Contentment is also pride, O Bharata, are destructive of prosperity, and those other two qualities also, viz. Compassion and fear. One who acteth under the influence of these never obtaineth anything high. Having beheld Yudhishthira's prosperity, whatever I enjoy brings me no gratification. The prosperity of Kunti's son, that is possessed of such splendour, maketh me pale. Knowing the affluence of the foe and my own destitution, even though that affluence is not before me, I yet see it before me. Therefore have I lost colour and become melancholy, pale and emaciated. Yudhishthira supporteth 88,000 Snataka Brahmanas, leading domestic lives, giving unto each of them 30 slave girls. Besides this, 1,000 other Brahmans eat at his place, and best of food on golden plates. The king of Cambodia sent unto him as tribute innumerable skins, black, darkish, and red, of the deer kadali, as also numberless blankets of excellent textures. And hundreds and thousands of she elephants and 30,000 camels wandered within the palace, for the kings of the earth brought them all as tribute to the capital of the Pandavas. And O Lord of earth, the kings also brought unto this foremost of sacrifices heaps of jewels and gems for the son of Kunti. Never before did I see or hear of such enormous wealth as was brought unto the sacrifice of the intelligent sons of Pandu. And O king, beholding that enormous collection of wealth belonging to the foe, I cannot enjoy peace of mind. Hundreds of Brahmins, supported by the grants that Yudhishthira hath given them, and possessing wealth of kind, waited at the palace gate with 3,000 of millions of tribute, but were prevented by the keepers from entering the mansion. Bringing with them clarified butter in handsome kamandalus made of gold, they did not obtain the admission into the palace. And Ocean himself brought unto him in vessels of white copper the nectar that is generated within his waters, and which is much superior to that which flowers and annual plants produce for Sakra. And Vasudeva, in brackets, at the conclusion of the sacrifice, having brought an excellent conch, bathed in the son of Pritha with sea water, brought in 1,000 jars of gold, all well adorned with numerous gems. Beholding all this, I became feverish with jealousy. Those jars had been taken to the eastern and southern oceans, and they had also been taken on the shoulders of men to the western ocean, O bull among men. And O father, although none but birds only can go to the northern region, Arjuna, having gone thither, exacted as tribute a vast quantity of wealth. There is another wonderful incident also which I will relate to thee. O listen to me. When 100,000 Brahmins were fed, it had been arranged that to notify this act every day conches should be blown in a chorus. But O Bharata, I continually heard conches blown there almost repeatedly, and hearing those notes my hair stood on end. And O great king, that palatial compound, filled with the innumerable monarchs that came there as spectators, looking exceedingly handsome like the cloudless firmament with stars. And O king of men, the monarchs came into that sacrifice of the wise son of Pandu, bringing with them every kind of wealth. And the kings that came there became like Vaisyas, the distributors of food unto the Brahmins that were fed. And O king, the prosperity that I beheld of Yudhishthira was such that neither the chief himself of the celestials, nor Yama or Varuna, nor the lord of Guhyakas owneth the same. And beholding that great prosperity of the son of Pandu, my heart burneth, and I cannot enjoy peace. Hearing these words of Duryodhana, Shakuni replied, Hear how thou mayst obtain this unrivalled prosperity that thou beholdest in the son of Pandu. O thou that hast truth for thy prowess. O Bharata, I am an adept at dice, superior to all in the world. I can ascertain the success or otherwise of every throw, and when to stake and when not. I have special knowledge of the game. The son of Kunti also is fond of dice playing, though he possesses little skill in it. Summoned to play or battle, he is sure to come forward, and I will defeat him. Page number 12. Repeatedly at every throw by practicing deception. I promise to win all that wealth of his, and thou, O Duryodhana, shall enjoy the same. Vaishampayana continued. King Duryodhana, thus addressed by Shaguni, without allowing a moment to elapse, said unto Dhritarashtra, This Shakuni, an adept at dice, is ready to win at dice. O king, the wealth of the sons of Pandu, it behoveth thee to grant him permission to do so. Dhritarashtra replied, I always follow the counsels of Shakta, my minister, possessed of great wisdom. Having consulted with him, I will inform thee what my judgment is in respect of this affair. Induced with great foresight, he will, keeping morality before his eyes, tell us what is good and what is proper for both parties, and what should be done in this matter. Duryodhana said, "If thou consultest with Shata, he will make thee desist. And if thou desist, O king, I will certainly kill myself. And when I am dead, O king, thou wilt become happy with Vidura. Thou wilt then enjoy the whole earth. What need hast thou with me?" Vaishampayana continued. Dhritarashtra, hearing these words of affliction uttered by Duryodhana from midst the feeling himself ready to what Duryodhana had dictated, commanded his servant, saying, "Let artificers be employed to erect without delay a delightful and handsome and spacious palace with 100 doors and 1,000 columns. And having brought carpenters and joiners, set ye jewels and precious stones all over the walls, and make it handsome and easy of access. Report to me when everything is complete." And O monarch, King Dhritarashtra, having made this resolution for the pacification of Duryodhana, sent messengers unto Vidura for summoning him. For without taking counsel with Vidura, never did the monarch form any resolution. But as regards the matter at hand, the king, although he knew the evils of gambling, was yet attracted towards it. The intelligent Vidura, however, as soon as he heard of it, knew that the arrival of Kali was at hand, and seeing that the way to destruction was about to open, he quickly came to Dhritarashtra. And Vidura, approaching his illustrious elder brother, and bowing down unto his feet, said these words. Page number 13. O exalted king, I do not approve of this resolution that thou hast formed. It behoved thee, O king, to act in such a way that no dispute may arise between thy children on account of this gambling match. Dhritarashtra replied, O Shatta, if the gods be merciful unto us, assuredly no dispute will ever arise amongst my sons. Therefore, auspicious or otherwise, beneficial or otherwise, let this friendly challenge at dice proceed. Even this without doubt is what fate hath ordained for us. And O son of the Bharata race, when I am near, and Drona and Bhishma and thou too, nothing evil that even fate might have ordained is likely to happen. Therefore go thou on Karyoking there to horses, endued with the speed of the wind, so that thou mayst reach Khandava even today, and bring thou Yudhishthira with thee. And O Vidura, I tell that even this is my resolution. Tell me nothing, I regard fate as supreme, which bringeth all this. Hearing these words of Dhritarashtra, and concluding that his race was doomed, Vidura in great sorrow went to Bhishma with great wisdom. Section 49. Janamejaya said, O thou foremost of all conversant with the Vedas, how did that game at dice take place, fraught with such evil to the cousins, and through which my grandsires, the son of Pandu, were plunged into such sorrow? What kings also were present in that assembly, and who amongst them approved of the gambling match, and who amongst them forbade it? O sinless one, O chief of regenerate ones, I desire thee to recite in detail all about this, which indeed was the cause of the destruction of the world. Shanti said, thus addressed by the king, the disciple of Vyasa, endued with great energy and conversant with the entire Vedas, narrated everything that had happened. Vaishampayana said, O best of the Bharatas, O great king, if thou desirest to hear, then listen to me as I narrate to thee everything again in detail. Ascertaining the opinion of Vidura, Dhritarashtra, the son of Ambika, calling Duryodhana, told him again in private, O son of Gandhari, have nothing to do with dice. Vidura does not speak well of it. Page number 14. Possessed of great wisdom, he will never give me advice that is not for my good. Do that, O son, for I regard it all as for thy good also. Indeed, Vidura knoweth with all its mysteries the science in brackets of political morality that the illustrious and learned and wise Brihaspati, the celestial Rishi, who is the spiritual guide of Vasava, had unfolded unto the wise chief of the immortals. And O son, I always accept that Vidura adviseth. O king, as the wise Uddhava is ever regarded amongst the Vrishnis, so is Vidura possessed of great intelligence esteemed as the foremost of the Kurus. Therefore, O son, have nothing to do with dice. It is evident that dice soweth dissensions, and dissensions are the ruin of the kingdom. Therefore, O son, abandon this idea of gambling. O son, thou hast obtained from us what in hath been ordained. A father and a mother should give unto their son, viz. Ancestral rank and possessions. Thou art educated and clever in every branch of knowledge, and hast been brought up with affection in thy paternal dwelling. Born the eldest amongst all thy brothers, living within thy own kingdom, why regardest thou thyself as unhappy? O thou of mighty arms, thou obtained food and attire of the very best kind, and which is not obtainable by ordinary men. Why dost thou grieve yet? O son, O mighty armed one, ruling thy large ancestral kingdom, swelling with people and wealth, thou shinest as splendidly as the chief of the celestials in heaven. Thou art possessed of wisdom. It behoveth thee to tell me what can be the root of this grief that hath made thee so melancholy. Duryodhana replied, I am a sinful wretch, O king, because I eat and dress beholding the prosperity of the foes. It hath been said that man is a wretch who is not filled with jealousy at the sight of his enemy's prosperity. O exalted one, this kingdom of prosperity of mine doth not gratify me. Beholding that blazing prosperity of the son of Kunti, I am very much pained. I tell thee strong must be my vitality, inasmuch as I am living, even at the sight of the whole earth owning the sway of Yudhishthira. The Nipas, the Chitrakas, the Kukuras, the Karaskaras, and the Lauha Jangas are living in the palace of Yudhishthira like bondsmen. The Himavat, the ocean, and the regions on the seashore, and the numberless other regions that yield jewels and gems, page number 15, have all acknowledged the superiority of the mansion of Yudhishthira in respect of wealth it containeth. And O monarch, regarding me as the eldest and entitled to respect, Yudhishthira, having received me respectfully, appointed me in receiving the jewels and gems that were brought as tribute. O Bharata, the limit and the like of the excellent and invaluable jewels that were brought there have not been seen. And O king, my hands were fatigued in receiving that wealth. And when I was tired, they that brought those valuable articles from distant regions used to wait till I was able to resume my labor. Bringing jewels from the lake Vindhu, the Asura architect Maya constructed (for the Pandavas) a lake-like surface made of crystal. Beholding the artificial lotuses with which it was filled, I mistook it, O king for water, and seeing me draw up my clothes (while about to cross it), Vikrodara Bhima laughed at me, regarding me as wanting in jewels and having lost my head at the sight of the affluence of my enemy. If I had the ability, I would, O king, without the loss of a moment, slay Vikrodara for that. But, O monarch, if we endeavour to slay Bhima now, without doubt ours will be the fate of Shishupala. O Bharata, that insult by the foe burneth me. Once again, O king, beholding a similar lake that is really full of water, but which I mistook for a crystal surface, I fell into it. At that, Bhima with Arjuna once more laughed derisively, and Draupadi, also accompanied by other females, joined in that laughter. That paineth my heart exceedingly. My apparel having been wet, the menials at the command of the king gave me other clothes. That also is my great sorrow. And, O king, hear now of another mistake that I speak of. In attempting to pass through what is exactly of the shape of a door, but through which there was really no passage, I struck my forehead against stone and injured myself. The twins Nakula and Sahadeva, beholding from a distance that I was so hit at the head, came and supported me in their arms, expressing great concern for me. And Sahadeva repeatedly told me, as if with a smile, This, O king, is the door, go this way. And Bhimasena, laughing aloud, addressed me and said, O son of Dhritarashtra, this is the door. And, O king, I had not even heard of the names of those gems that I saw in that mansion. And it is for these reasons that my heart so acheth. Page number 16. Section L in brackets 50. Duryodhana said, "Listen now, O Bharata, about all the most costly articles I saw, belonging unto the sons of Pandu, and brought one after another by the kings of the earth. Beholding that wealth of the foe, I lost my reason and scarcely knew myself. And O Bharata, listen as I describe that wealth consisting of both manufactures and the produce of the land. The king of Cambodia gave innumerable skins of the best king, and blankets made of wool, of the soft fur of rodents, other bronzes, and of the hair of cats, all inlaid with threads of gold. And he also gave 300 horses of the Titati and the Kalmasha species, possessing noses like parrots. And he also gave 300 camels and an equal number of she asses, all fattened and with the olives and the pilusha. And innumerable Brahmanas engaged in rearing cattle and occupied in low offices for the gratification of the illustrious King Yudhishthira just waited at the gate with 300 millions of tribute, but they were denied admission into the palace. And hundred upon hundreds of Brahmans, possessing wealth of kine and living upon the lands that Yudhishthira had given them, came there with their handsome golden kamandalus filled with clarified butter. And though they had brought such tribute, they were refused admission into the palace. And the Shutra kings that dwelt in the regions of the sea coast brought with them, O king, hundred thousand of thousands of serving girls of the Karpasika country, all of beautiful features and slender waist, and luxuriant hair, and decked in golden ornaments, and also many skins of the Ranku deer, worthy even of Brahmanas as tribute unto King Yudhishthira. And the tribes Vairamas, Paradas, Tungas, with the Kitavas, who lived upon crops that depended on water from the sky or of the river, and also they who were born in regions on the seashore, in woodlands or countries on the other side of the ocean, waited at the gate, being refused permission to enter, with goats and kine and asses and camels and vegetable, honey and blankets and jewels and gems of various kinds. And that great warrior King Bhagadatta, the brave ruler of Pragjyotisha, and the mighty sovereign of the Milchas, at the head of a large number of Yavanas, waited at the gate unable to enter, with a considerable tribute, comprising of horses of the best breed, and possessing speed of the wind. Page number 17. And King Bhagadatta, beholding the concourse, had to go away from the gate, making over a number of swords with handles made of the purest ivory, and well adorned with diamonds and every kind of gems. And many tribes coming from different regions, of whom some possessed 2 eyes, some 3, and some had eyes on their foreheads, and those also called Aushmikas and Nishadas and Romakas, some cannibals, and many possessing only 1 leg. I say, O king, standing at the gate, being refused permission to enter. And these diverse rulers brought as tribute 10,000 asses of diverse hues, and black necks, and huge bodies, and great speed, and much docility, and celebrated all over the world. And these asses were all of goodly size and delightful colour, and they were all bred on the coast of Vanku. And there were many kings that gave unto Yudhishthira much gold and silver. And having given much tribute, they obtained admission into the palace of Yudhishthira. The people that came there, possessing only 1 leg, gave unto Yudhishthira many wild horses, some of which were as red as a cochineal, and some white, and some possessing the hues of the rainbow, and some looking like evening clouds, and some that were of variegated colour. And they were all endued with the speed of the mind. And they also gave unto the king enough gold of superior quality. I also saw numberless Chinas, and Sakas, and Udras, and many barbarous tribes living in the woods, and many Vrishnis, and Harahunas, and dusky tribes of the Himawat, and many Nipas, and people residing in regions on the sea coast, waiting at the gates, being refused permission to enter. And the people of Valhika gave unto him as tribute 10,000 asses of goodly size, and black necks, and daily running 200 miles. And those asses were of many shapes, and they were well trained and celebrated all over the world, and possessed of symmetrical proportion and excellent color. Their skins were pleasant to touch. And the Valhikas also presented numerous blankets of woolen texture manufactured in Chin, and numerous skins of the Ranku deer, and clothes manufactured from jute, and others woven with the threads spun by insects. And they also gave thousands of other colors not made of cotton, possessing the color of the lotus. And these were all, page number 18, of smooth texture. And they also gave soft sheepskins by thousands. And they also gave many sharp and long swords and scimitars, and hatchets and fine edged battle axes, manufactured in the western countries. And having presented the perfumes and jewels and gems of various kinds by thousands as tribute, they waited at the gate, being refused admission into the palace. And the Sakas and Tukhatas and Tukharas and Kankas and Romakas and men with horns, bringing with them as tribute numberless large elephants and 10,000 horses and hundreds of millions of gold, waited at the gate, being refused permission to enter. And the kings of the eastern countries, having presented numerous valuable articles, including many costly carpets, and vehicles and beds, and armors of divers hues, decked with jewels and gold and ivory, and weapons of various kinds, and cars of various shapes and handsome make, and adorned with gold, with well trained horses trimmed with tiger skins, and rich and variegated blankets for capricorning elephants, and various kinds of jewels and gems, arrows long and short, and various other kinds of weapons, obtained permission to enter the sacrificial palace of the illustrious Pandava. Section LI 51. Duryodhana said, O sinless one, listen to me as I describe that large mass of wealth consisting of various kinds of tribute presented unto Yudhishthira by the kings of the earth. That they that dwell by the side of the river Sailota, flowing between the mountains of Mar and Mandara, and enjoy the delicious shade of tops of the Kichaka bamboo, viz., the Kasas, the Ikasanas, the Arhas, the Pradaras, the Dirghavinas, the Paradas, the Kulindas, the Tanganas, and other Tanganas, brought as tribute heaps of gold measured in dronas, in bracket jars, and raised from underneath the earth by ants, and therefore called after these creatures. The mountain tribes endued with great strength, having brought as tribute numerous chamaras, in brackets long brushes, soft and black, and others white as moonbeam, and sweet honey extracted from the flowers growing on the Himavat, as also from the Mishali Champaka, and garlands of flowers brought from the region of the northern Kurus, and divers kinds of plants from the north, even from Kailasa, waited with their heads bent down at the gate of King Yudhishthira, being refused permission to enter. Page number 19. I also beheld their numberless chiefs of Kiratas, armed with cruel weapons, and ever engaged in cruel deeds, eating of fruits and roots, and attired in skins, and living in the northern slopes of Himavat, and on the mountain from behind which the sun rises, and in the region of Karusha, on the sea coast, and on both sides of the Lohitya mountains. And, O king, having brought with them as tribute loads upon loads of sandal and alloy, and also black alloy, and heaps upon heaps of valuable skins and gold and perfumes, and 10,000 serving girls of their own race, and many beautiful animals and birds of remote countries, and much gold of great splendor procured from mountains. The Kiratas awaited at the gate, being refused permission to enter. The Kairatas, the Daradas, the Darvas, the Suras, the Vayamakas, the Audamvaras, the Durvibhagas, the Kumaras, the Paradas, along with the Vahlikas, the Kashmiras, the Gorakas, the Hansakayanas, the Shivis, the Trigartas, the Yaudheyas, the ruler of Madras and Kaikeyas, the Amavastas, the Kaukuras, the Tarkshyas, the Vastrapas, along with the Palhavas, the Vashatayas, and the Maulyas, along with the Shudrakas, the Malavas, the Poundrias, the Kukaras, the Sakas, the Angas, the Vangas, the Pundras, the Sanvatyas, and the Gayas. These good and well-born Kshatriyas, distributed into regular clans and trained to the use of arms, brought tribute unto King Yudhishthira by hundreds and thousands. And the Vangas, the Kalingas, the Magadhas, the Tamraliptas, the Supundrakas, the Dwalikas, the Sagarakas, the Petrornas, the Saisavas, the innumerable Karnapravarnas, who presented them at the gate, were told by the gatekeepers at the command of the king that if they could wait and bring good tribute, they could obtain admission. Then the kings of those nations each gave 1,000 elephants furnished with tusks like unto the shafts of plows, and decked with girdles made of gold, and covered with fine blankets, and therefore resembling the lotus in hue. And they were all darkish as rocks, and always musty, and procured from the sides of the Kamayaga lake, covered with defensive armor. And they were also exceedingly patient and of the best breed. And having, page number 20, made these presents, those kings were permitted to enter. O king, these and many others, coming from various regions, and numberless other illustrious kings, brought jewels and gems unto this sacrifice. And Chitraratha, also the king of Gandharvas, the friend of Indra, gave 400 horses gifted with the speed of the wind. And the Gandharva Tumvaru gladly gave 100 horses of the color of mango leaf and decked in gold. And O thou of the Kuru race, the celebrated king of the Mlecha tribe, called the Sukaras, gave many hundreds of excellent elephants. And Virata, the king of Matsya, gave as tribute 2,000 elephants decked in gold. And King Vasudhana from the kingdom of Pansu presented unto the son of Pandu 26 elephants and 2,000 horses. O king, all decked in gold and endued with speed and strength and in full vigor of youth, and divers other kinds of wealth. And Yajnasena presented unto the sons of Pandu for the sacrifice 14,000 serving girls and 10,000 serving men with their wives, many hundreds of excellent elephants, 26 cars with elephants yoked unto them, and also his whole kingdom. And Vasudeva of the Vrishni race, in order to enhance the dignity of Arjuna, gave 14,000 of excellent elephants. Indeed, Krishna is the soul of Arjuna, and Arjuna is the soul of Krishna. And whatever Arjuna may say, Krishna is certain to accomplish. And Krishna is capable of abandoning heaven itself for the sake of Arjuna. And Arjuna also is capable of sacrificing his life for the sake of Krishna. And the kings of Chola and Pandya, though they bought numberless jars of gold filled with fragrant sandal juice from the hills of Malaya, and loads of sandal and aloe wood from the Darduras hills, and many gems of great brilliancy and fine clothes inlaid with gold, did not obtain permission to enter. And the king of the Singalas gave those best of sea-born gems called the Lapis Lazuli, and heaps of pearls also, and hundreds of coverlets for elephants. And numberless dark-colored men with the ends of their eyes red as copper, attired in clothes decked with gems, waited at the gates with those presents. And numberless Brahmanas and Kshatriyas who had been vanquished, the Vaishyas and the serving Shudras, from love of Yudhishthira, brought tribute unto the son of Pandu. And even all the Mlechas, from love and respect, came unto Yudhishthira. And page number 21. And all orders of men, good, indifferent, and low, belonging to numberless races, coming from diverse lands, made Yudhishthira's habitation the epitome of the world. And beholding the kings of the earth, to prevent unto the foes such excellent and valuable presents, I wished for death out of grief. And, O king, I will now tell thee of the servants of the Pandavas, people for whom Yudhishthira supplieth food, both cooked and uncooked. There are 100,000 billions of mounted elephants and cavalry, and 100 millions of cars and countless foot soldiers. At one place raw provisions are being measured out, at another they are being cooked, and at another place the foods are being distributed. And the notes of festivity are being heard everywhere, and amongst men of all orders I beheld not a single one in the mansion of Yudhishthira that had not food and drink and ornaments. And 88,000 of Snataka Brahmins leading domestic lives, all supported by Yudhishthira, with 30 serving girls given unto each, gratified by the king, always pray with complacent hearts for the destruction of his foes. And 10,000s of other ascetics, with vital seed drawn up, daily eat of golden plates in Yudhishthira's palace. And, O king, Yajnaseni, without having eaten herself, daily seeth whether everybody, including even the deformed and the dwarfs, hath eaten or not. And, O Bharata, only two do not pay tribute unto the son of Kunti, viz. The Panchalas in consequence of their relationship by marriage, and the Anthakas and Vrishnis in consequence of their friendship. Section 52. Duryodhana said, those kings that are revered all over all the world, who are devoted to truth and who are pledged to the observance of rigid vows, who are possessed of great learning and eloquence, who are fully conversant with the Vedas and their branches, as also with sacrifices, who have piety and modesty, whose souls are devoted to virtue, who possess fame and who have enjoyed the grand rites of coronation, all wait upon and worship Yudhishthira. And, O king, I beheld there many thousands of wild kine with as many vessels of page number 22, white copper for milking them, brought thither by the kings of the earth as sacrificial presents to be given away by Yudhishthira unto the Brahmana. And, O Bharata, for bathing Yudhishthira at the conclusion of the sacrifice, many kings with the greatest alacrity themselves brought there in a state of purity many excellent jars containing water, and King Valika brought there a car decked with pure gold. And King Sudakshina himself yoked thereto 4 white horses of Kamboja breed, and Sunita of great might fitted the lower pole, and the ruler of Chedi with his own hands took up and fitted the flag staff. And the king of the southern country stood ready with the coat of the mail, the ruler of Magadha with garlands of flowers and the headgear, and the great warrior Vasantana with the 60 years old elephant, the king of Matsya with the side fittings of the car, all encased in gold, King Ekalavya with the shoes, and the king of Avanti with divers kinds of water for the final bath, King Chekitana with the quiver, the king of Kashi with the bow, and Shalya with a sword whose hilt and straps were adorned with gold. Then Dhaumya and Vyasa of great ascetic merit, with Narada and Asita's son Devala, standing before, performed the ceremony of sprinkling the sacred water over the king. And the great rishis with cheerful hearts sat where the sprinkling ceremony was performed. And other illustrious rishis conversant with the Vedas, with Jamadagni's son among them, approached Yudhishthira, the giver of large sacrificial presents, uttering mantras all the while, like the 7 rishis approaching the great Indra in heaven. And Satyaki, of unbaffled prowess, held the umbrella in brackets over the king's head. The Dhananjaya and Bhima were engaged in tanning the king, while the twins held a couple of chamaras in their hands. And the ocean himself brought in a sling that big couch of Varuna, which the celestial artificer Vishwakarman had constructed with 1,000 nishkas of gold, and which Prajapati had in former kalpa presented unto Indra. It was with that couch that Krishna bathed Yudhishthira after the conclusion of the sacrifice, and beholding it, I swooned away. People go to the eastern or the western seas, and also to the southern one. But, O father, none except birds can ever go to the northern sea. But the Pandavas have spread their dominion even there, for I heard hundreds of conches had been brought thence blown, in brackets, in the sacrificial mansion, page number 23, indicative of auspicious rejoicing. And while those conches blew simultaneously, my hair stood on end, and those among the kings who were weak in strength fell down, and Drishtadyumna and Satyaki and the sons of Pandu and Keshava, those eight endued with strength and prowess and handsome in person, beholding the kings deprived of consciousness and myself in that plight, laughed outright. The Vibhatsu in bracket Arjuna with a cheerful heart gave, O Bharata, unto the principal Brahmanas 500 bullocks with horns plated with gold. And King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, having completed the Rajasuya sacrifice, obtained, like the exalted Harishchandra, such prosperity that neither Rantideva, nor Nabaga, nor Javanasva, nor Manu, nor King Prithu, the son of Vena, nor Bhagirath, Yayati, nor Nahusha had obtained its like. And beholding, O exalted one, such prosperity in the son of Pritha, which is even like that which Harishchandra had, I do not see the least good in continuing to live, O Bharata. O ruler of men, a yoke that is tied, in brackets to the bullock's shoulders by a blind man becomes loosened. Even such is the case with us. The younger ones are growing while the elder ones are decaying. And beholding all this, O chief of the Kurus, I cannot enjoy peace even with the aid of reflection. And it is for this, O king, that I am plunged into grief and becoming pale and emaciated.
Mahabharata, section CXIV. Sambhav Parva continued. Vaishnav Payana said Pandu then, at the command of Dhritarashtra, offered the wealth he had acquired by the prowess of his arms to Bhishma, their grandmother Satyavati, and their mothers. And he sent portion of his wealth to Vidura also. Also the virtuous Pandu gratified his other relatives also with similar presents. Then Satyavati and Bhishma and the Kosala princes were all gratified with the presents Pandu made out of the acquisitions of his prowess. And Ambalika in particular, upon embracing her son of incomparable prowess, became as glad as the queen of heaven upon embracing Jayanta. And with the wealth acquired by that hero, Dhritarashtra performed 5 great sacrifices that were equal unto 100 great horse sacrifices, at all of which the offerings to a Brahmans were by hundreds and thousands. A little while after, O bull of Bharat's race, Pandu, who had achieved a victory over sloth and lethargy, accompanied by his 2 wives, Kunti and Madri, retired into the woods. Leaving his excellent palace with its luxurious beds, he became a permanent inhabitant of the woods, devoting the whole of his life to the chase of the deer, and fixing his abode in a delightful and hilly region overgrown with hug sala tree. On the southern slope of the Himavat mountains he roamed about in perfect freedom. The handsome Pandu with his 2 wives wandered in those woods like Airavat, accompanied by 2 she-elephants, and the dwellers in those woods beholding the heroic Bharata prince in the company of his wives, armed with sword, arrows, and how clad with his beautiful armor, and skilled in all excellent weapons, regarded him as the very good wandering amongst them. And at the command of Dhritarashtra, people were busy in supplying Pandu in his retirement with every object of pleasure and enjoyment. Meanwhile, the son of the ocean going Ganga heard that King Devaka had a daughter endowed with youth and beauty and begotten upon a Sudra wife. Bringing her from her father's abode, Bhishma married her to Vidur of great wisdom, and Vidur begot upon her many children like unto himself in accomplishments. Section CXV. Sambhav Parva continued. Vashyam Paina said, Meanwhile, O Janmeja, Dhritarashtra begat upon Gandhari 100 sons, and upon a Vaishya wife another besides those 100. And Pandu had by his two wives Kunti and Madri 5 sons, who were great charioteers, and who were all begotten by the celestials for the perpetuation of the Kuru line. Janmeja said, O best of Brahmans, how did Gandhari bring forth those 100 sons, and in how many years? What were also the periods of life allotted to each? How did Dhritarashtra also beget another son in a Vaishya wife? How did Dhritarashtra behave towards his loving, obedient, and virtuous wife Gandhari? How were also begot the 5 sons of Pandu, those mighty charioteers, even though Pandu himself labored under the curse of the great Rishi Hisyu? Tell me all this in detail, for my thirst for hearing everything relating to my own ancestor health that not been slacked. Pashampayanus said, One day Gandhari entertained with respectful attention the great Dwaipana who came to her abode. Exhausted with hunger and fatigue, gratified with Gandhari's hospitality, the rishi gave her the boon she asked, for which that she should have a century of sons each equal unto her lord in strength and accomplishments. Some time after Gandhari conceived, and she bore the burden in her womb for the 2 long years without being delivered, and she was greatly afflicted at this. It was then that she heard that Kunti had brought forth a son whose splendor was like unto the morning sun. Impatient of the period of gestation which had prolonged so long, and deprived of reason by grief, she struck her womb with great violence without the knowledge of her husband, and thereupon came out of her womb after 2 years' growth a hard mass of flesh like unto an iron ball. When she was about to throw it away, the pioneer, learning everything by his spiritual powers, promptly came there, and that first of aesthetics, beholding that ball of flesh, addressed the daughter of Subala. Thus, what hast thou done? Gandhari, without endeavouring to disguise her feelings, addressed the rishi and said, Having heard that Kunti had brought forth a son like unto Surya in splendour, I stuck in grief at my womb. Thou hast, O Rishi, granted me the boon that I should have 100 sons, but here is only a ball of flesh for those 100 sons. Vyasa then said, Daughter of Subala, it is even so, but my words can never be futile. I have not spoken an untruth even in jest. I need not speak of other occasions. Let 100 pots full of clarified butter be brought instantly, and let them be placed at a concealed spot. In the meantime, let cool water be sprinkled over this ball of flesh. Pioneer continued. That ball of flesh, then sprinkled over with water, became in time divided into 101 parts, each about the size of the thumb. These were then put into those pots full of clarified butter that had been placed at a concealed spot and were watched with care. The illustrious Vyasa then said unto the daughter of Suvala that she should open the covers of the pots after full 2 years. And having said this and made these arrangements, the wise Dwapayana went to the Himavat mountains for devoting himself to asceticism. Then, in time, King Duryodhana was born from among those pieces of the ball of flesh that had been deposited in those pots. According to the order of birth, King Yudhishthira was the oldest. The news of Duryodhana's birth was carried to Bhishma and the wise Vidura. The day that the haughty Duryodhana was born was also the birthday of Bhima of mighty arms and great prowess. As soon as Duryodhana was born, he began to cry and bray like an ass. And hearing that sound, the asses, vultures, jackals, and crows uttered their respective cries responsibly. Violent winds began to blow, and there were fires in various directions. Then King Dhritarashtra, in great fear, summoning Bhishma and Vidura and other well-wishers and all the Kurus and numberless Brahmans, addressed them and said, The oldest of those princes to destroy is the perpetuator of our land. By virtue of his birth, he hath acquired the kingdom. We have nothing to say to this, but shall this my son born after him become king? Tell me truly what is lawful and right under these circumstances. As soon as these words were spoken, O Bharata, jackals and other carnivorous animals began to howl ominously, and marking those frightful omens all around, the assembled Brahmans and wise Vidura replied, O king, O bull among men, when these frightful omens are noticeable at the birth of the eldest son, it is evident that he shall be the exterminator of my race. The prosperity of all dependent on his abandonment. Calamity there must be in keeping him. O king, if thou abandonest him, there remain yet they 99 sons. If thou desirest the good of thy race, abandon him. O Bharata, O king. O Bharata, O king, do good to the world and thy own race by casting off this one child of thine. It hath been said that an individual should be cast for the sake of the family, that a family should be cast off for the sake of a village, that a village may be abandoned for the sake of the whole country, and that the earth itself may be abandoned for the sake of the soul. When Vidura and those Brahmans had stated so, King Dhritarashtra, out of affection for his son, had not the heart to follow that advice. Then, O king, within a month were born a full 100 sons unto Dhritarashtra, and a daughter also in excess of this 100. And during the time when Gandhari was in a state of advanced pregnancy, there was a maid servant of the Vaishya class who used to attend on Dhritarashtra. During that year, O king, was begotten upon her by the illustrious Dhritarashtra a son endued with great intelligence, who was afterwards named Yuvusu, and became he was begotten by a Kshatriya upon a Vaishya woman, he come to be called Karna. Thus were born into the wise Dhritarashtra 100 sons who were all heroes and mighty chariot fighters, and a daughter over and above the 100, another son Yujutsu of great energy and prowess begotten upon a Vaishya woman. Section CXVI. Sambhav Parva continued. Janmeja said, O sinless one, thou hast narrated to me from the beginning all about the birth of the Dhritarashtra 100 sons owing to the boon granted by the Rishi, but thou hast not told me as yet any particulars about the birth of the daughter. Thou hast merely said that over and above the 100 sons there was another son named Yujutsu, begotten upon a Vaishya woman and a daughter. The great Rishi Vyasa of immeasurable energy said unto the daughter of the king of Gandhara that she would become the mother of 100 sons. Illustrious one, how is that thou sayest Gandhari had a daughter over and above her 100 sons? If the ball of flesh was distributed by the great Rishi only on 200 parts, and if Gandhari did not conceive on any other occasion, how was then Duhashala born? Tell me this, O Rishi. My curiosity had been great. Vashampayana said, O descendant of the Pandavas, thy question is just, and I will tell thee no, it happened. The illustrious and great Rishi himself, by sprinkling water over the ball of flesh, began to divide it into parts. And as it was being divided into parts, the nurse began to take them up and put them one by one into those pots filled by clarified butter. While this process was going on, the beautiful and chaste Gandhari of Rigid was, realizing the affection that one feeleth for a daughter, began to think within herself, There is no doubt that I shall have 100 sons. The Muni having said so, it can never be otherwise. But I should be very happy if a daughter were born of me over and above these 100 sons, and junior to them all. My husband then may attend to those worlds that the possession of a daughter's sons conferreth. Then again the affection the woman feel for their son in law is great. If therefore I obtain a daughter over and above my 100 sons, then surrounded by sons and daughters' sons, I may feel supremely blessed. If I have ever practiced ascetic austerities, if I have ever given anything in charity, if I have ever performed the Homa to Brahmans, if I have ever gratified my superiors by respectful attentions, then as the fruit of those acts let a daughter be born unto me. All this while that illustrious and best of rishis, Krishna Dwapana himself was dividing the ball of flesh and counting a full 100 of the parts. He said unto the daughter of Suvala, Here are the 100 sons. I did not speak aught unto three that was false. Here, however, is one part in excess of the 100 intended for giving thee a daughter's son. This part shall develop into an amiable and fortunate daughter as thou hast desired. Then that great ascetic brought in another pot full of clarified butter and put the part intended for a daughter into it. Thus have I, O Bharata, narrated on to thee all about the birth of Duhashala. Duhushala, tell me, O sinless one, what more I am now to narrate. Section CXVII. Sambhav Parva continued. Janmeja said, please recite the names of Dhritarashtra's sons according to the order of their birth. Vaishyampayana said, their names, O king, according to the order of birth are Duryodhana, Jujutsu, Duhosana, Duhusa, Duhusala, Jalasandha, Sama, Saha, Vinda, and Anuvinda, Durdarsa, Suvahu, Dushpardhansana, Durmarsahana, Durmukha, Dushkarna, and Karna, Vivinsati and Vikarna, Sala, Satva, Sulochana, Chitra, and Upachitra, Chitrakaksha, Charuchitra, Sarasana, Drumada, and Durvigaha, Vivitisu, Vikatana, Urnabha, and Sunabha, then Nandaka and Upanadandaka, Chitravana, Chitravarman, Suvarman, Durmimochana, Ayuvahu, Mahavahu, Chitranga, Chitrakundala, Bhimavega, Bhimavala, Balaki, Balabardhana, Ugrayudhu, Bhima, Karna, Kanakaya, Dhirayudha, Dhridhavarman, Dhri Dakshatra, Somakitri, Anudara, Dhradasandha, Jarasandha, Satyasandha, Sada, Suvak, Ugrasravas, Vishalkaz, Duradhara, Dradhahasta, Suhasta, Vatavega, and Suvarchas, Adityeketu, Vahavahasin, Nagdatta, Agrayain, Kavachin, Karathna, Kundadhara, Dhanurdhan, the heroes, Ugra and Bhimaratha, Viravahu, Alulupa, Abhaya, and Raudrakarman, and Dhiraratha, Anadhrasya, Kundabedin, Viravi, Dhirghalochana, Pramatha, and Pramathi, and the powerful Dhirgaroma, Dhirgavahu, Mahavahu, Vyodhru, Kanakdhaja, Kundasi, Virasaj. Besides these 100 sons, there was a daughter named Duhsala. All were heroes and athletes, and were well skilled in warfare. All were learned in the weights and all kinds of weapons, and O king, worthy wives were in time selected for all of them by Dhritarashtra after proper examination, and King Dhritarashtra, O monarch, also bestowed Duhshala in proper time and with proper rites upon Jayadratha, the king of Sindhu. Section CXVIII. Sambhava Parva continued. Janmanja said, O utterer of Brahma, thou hast recited everything about the extraordinary birth among men of the sons of Dhritarashtra in consequence of the Rishi's grace. Thou hast also said what their names are according to the order of their birth. O Brahmana, I have heard all this from thee, but tell me now all about the Pandavas. While reciting the incarnations on earth of the Celestial, the Asuras, and the beginnings of other classes, thou saidst that the Pandavas were all illustrious and endued with the prowess of gods, and that they were incarnate portion of the Celestials themselves. I desire therefore to hear all about those beings of extraordinary achievements beginning from the moment of their birth. O Vashampayan, recite thou their achievements. Vaishampayana said, O king, one day Pandu, while roaming about in the woods on the southern slope of the Himavat, that teemed with deer and wild animals of fierce disposition, saw a large deer that seemed to be the leader of a herd, serving his mate. Beholding the animals, the monarch pierced them both with 5 of his sharp and swift arrows winged with golden feathers. O monarch, that was no deer that Pandu struck it, but a rishi's son of a great ascetic merit, who was enjoying his mate in the form of a deer, pierced by Pandu. While engaged in the act of intercourse, he fell down to the ground, utterly cries that were of a man, and began to weep bitterly. The deer then addressed Pandu and said, O king, ever men that are slaves to lust and wrath, and void of reason, and even sinful, never commit such a cruel act as this. Individual judgment prevaileth not against the ordinance prevaileth against individual judgment. The wise never sanction anything countenanced by the ordinance. Thou art born, O Bharata, in a race that hath ever been virtuous. How is it therefore that even thou, suffering thyself to be overpowered by passion and wrath, losest thy reason? Hearing this, Pandu replied, O dear kings, behave in the matter of slaying animals of thy species exactly as they do in the matter of slaying foes. It behoveth thee not therefore to reprove me thus from ignorance. Animals of thy species are slain by open or covert means. This indeed is the practice of kings. Then why dost thou reprove me? Formerly the Rishi Agastya, while engaged in the performance of a grand sacrifice, chased the deer and devoted every deer in the forest unto the gods in general. Thou hast been slain in pursuance to the uses sanctioned by such a precedent. Wherefore reprovest us then. For his special sacrifices Agastya performed the Homa with fat of the deer. The deer then said, O king, men do not let fly their arrows at their enemies when the latter are unprepared. But there is a time for doing it, viz. After declaration of hostilities. Slaughter at such a time is not censurable. Pandu replied, It is a well known that men slay deer by various effective means without regarding whether the animals are careful or careless. Therefore, O dear, why dost thou reprove me? The deer then said, O king, I did not blame thee for thy having killed a deer or for the injury thou hast done to me, but instead of acting so cruelly, thou shouldst have waited till the completion of my act of intercourse. What man of wisdom and virtue is there that can kill a deer while engaged in such a art? The time of sexual intercourse is agreeable to every creature and productive of good to all. O king, with this my mate I was engaged in the gratification of my sexual desire, but that effort of mine hath been rendered futile by thee. O king of the Kurus, as thou art born in the race of the Pauravas, ever noted for white virtuous deeds, such an act hath scarcely been worthy of thee. O Bharata, this act must be regarded as extremely cruel, deserving of universal execration, infamous and sinful, and certainly leading to hell. Thou art acquainted with the pleasures of sexual intercourse, thou art acquainted also with the teaching of morality and dictates of duty, like unto a celestial as thou art. It behoveth thee not to do such an act as leadeth to hell. O best of kings, the thy duty is to chastise all who act cruelly, who are engaged in sinful practices, and who have thrown to the winds religion, profit, and pleasure as explained in the scriptures. What hast thou done, O best of men, in killing me who have given thee no offence? I am, O king Amuni, who lived on fruits and roots, though disguised as a deer. I was living in the woods in peace with all. Yet thou hast killed me, O king, for which I will curse thee certainly. As thou hast been cruel unto a couple of opposite sexes, death shall certainly overtake thee as soon as thou feelest the influence of sexual desire. I am a Muni of the name of Kindama. Possessed of ascetic merit, I was engaged in sexual intercourse with this deer because my feeling of modesty did not permit me to indulge in such an act in human society. In the form of a deer, I rove in the deep woods in company of other deer. Thou hast slain me without knowing that I am a Brahmana. The sin of having slain in Brahmana shall not. Therefore, be thine. But senseless man, as you have killed me, disguised as a deer, at such a time thy fate shall certainly be even like mine. When approaching thy wife lustfully, thou wilt unite with her even as I had done with mine. And that very state shalt thou have to go to the word of the spirits, and that wife of thine with whom thou mayest be united in intercourse at that time of thy death shall also follow thee with affection and reference to the domains of the king of the dead. Thou hasn't brought me grief when I was happy, so shall grief come to thee when thou art in happiness. Vashampayana continued, saying this that deer afflicted with grief gave up the ghost, and Pandu also was plunged in woe at the sight. Section CXIX Sambhav Parva continued. Vashampayana said, After the death of that dear King Pandu with his wives was deeply afflicted and wept bitterly, and he exclaimed, The wicked, even if born in virtuous families, deluded by their own passions, become overwhelmed with misery as the fruit of their own deeds. I have heard that my father, though begotten by Shantanu of virtuous soul, was cut off while still a youth, only because he had become a slave to his lust. In the soil of that lustful king, illustrious Rishi Krishna Dwapana himself, of a truthful full speech, begot me a son. Thought I am of such a being with my wicked heart wedded to vice. I am yet leading a wandering life in the woods in the chase of the deer. Oh, the very gods have forsaken me. I shall seek salvation now. The great impediments to salvation are the desire to beget children and other concerns of the world. I shall now adapt the brahmacharya mode of life and follow in the imperishable wake of my father. I shall certainly bring my passions under complete control by several ascetic penances, forsaking of my wives and other relatives and shaving my head alone shall I wander over the earth, begging for my subsistence from each of these trees standing here, forsaking every object of affection and aversion, and covering my body with dust. I shall make the shelter of trees or deserted houses my home. I shall never yield to influence of sorrow or joy, and I shall regard slander and eulogy in the same light. I shall not seek benedictions or bows. I shall be at peace with all, and shall not accept gifts. I shall not mock anybody, nor shall I knit my brows at anyone, but shall be ever cheerful and devoted to the good of all creatures. I shall not harm any of the four orders of the life gifted with power of locomotion or otherwise with oviparous and viviparous creatures and worms and vegetables, but on the contrary preserve an equality of behavior towards all as if they were my own children. Once a day shall I beg of 5 or 10 families at the most, and if I do not succeed in obtaining alms, I shall then go without food. I shall rather stint myself than beg more than once of the same person. If I do not obtain anything after completing my round of 7 or 10 houses moved by covetous, I shall not enlarge my 7 or 10 houses moved by covetousness. I shall not enlarge my round whether I obtain or fail to obtain alms. I shall be equally unmoved like a great ascetic, one looping off an arm of mine with a hatchet, and one smearing another man with sandal paste. Shall be regarded by my equally. I shall not wish prosperity to the one or misery to the other. I shall not be pleased with life or displeased with death. I shall neither desire to live nor to die. Washing my heart of all sins, I shall certainly transcend those sacred rites productive of happiness that men perform in auspicious moments, days, and periods. I shall also abstain from all assets of religion and profit, and also those that lead to the gratification of the senses. Freed from all sins and snares of the world, I shall be like the vine subject to none, following the path of fearlessness and bearing myself in this way. I shall at last lay down my life. Destitute of the power of begetting children firmly adhering to the line of duty, I shall not certainly deviate therefrom in order to tread in the vile path of the world that is so full of misery. Whether respected or disrespected in the world, that men who were covetous cachet on others a begging look, certainly behaved like a dog. Destitute as I am of the power of procreation, I should not certainly, from desire of offspring, solicit others to give me children. Vaishampayana continued. The king, having thus wept in sorrow with a sigh, looked at his 2 wives Kunti and Madri, and addressing them, said, let the princes of Kaushala, my mother Vidura, the king with our friends, the venerable Shattavati Bhishma, the prized of our family, illustrious, Soma drinking Brahmas of rigid vows, and all elderly citizens, depending on us to be informed, after being prepared for it, that Pandu hath retired into the woods to lead a life of asceticism. Hearing these words of their lord, who had set his heart on a life of asceticism in the woods, both Kunti and Madri addressed him in these proper words: O full of Bharata's race, there are many other modes of life which thou canst adopt and in which thou canst undergo the severest penances along with us. The wedded revives, in which, for the salvation of the body, freedom from rebirth, thou mayest obtain heaven. We also, in the company of our Lord, and for his benefit, controlling our passions and bidding adieu to all luxuries, shall subject ourselves to the severest austerities. O King, O thou of great wisdom, if thou abandonest us, we shall then this very day truly depart from this world. Pandu replied, if indeed this your resolve springs from virtue, and then with you both I shall follow the imperishable path of my fathers. Abandoning the luxuries of cities and towns, clad in barks of trees and living on fruits and roots, I shall wander in deep woods. Practicing the severest penances, bathing morning and evening, I shall perform the Homa. I shall reduce my body and eating very sparingly, and shall wear rags and skins and knotted locks on my head, exposing myself to heat and cold and disregarding hunger and thirst. I shall reduce my body by several ascetic penances. I shall live fruit, ripe or green, that I may find. I shall offer oblations to the Pitris, Mens, and the Manas, and the gods with speech, water, and the fruits of the wilderness. I shall not see far less harm any of the denizens of the woods, or any of my relatives, or any of the residents of cities and towns. Until I lay down this body, I shall thus practice the several ordinances of the Vanaprastha scriptures, always searching for several ones that they may contain. Vashampayana continued, the Kuru king having said this unto his wives, gave away to Brahmanas the big jewel in his diadem, his necklace of precious gold, his bracelets, his large earrings, his valuable robes, and all the ornaments of his wives. Then, summoning his attendants, he commanded them, saying, return ye to Hastinapura and proclaim unto all the Pandu with his wives hath gone into the woods, foregoing wealth, desire, happiness, and even sexual appetite. Then those followers and attendants, hearing these and other soft words of the king, set up a loud wail, uttering, oh, we are undone. Then, with hot tears trickling down their cheeks, they left the monarch and returned to Hastinapura with speed, carrying that wealth with them, all that was to distribute it in charity. Then Dhritarashtra, the first of men, hearing from them everything that happened in the woods, wept for his brother. He brooded over his affliction continually, little relishing the comfort of beds and seats and dishes. Meanwhile, the Kuru prince Pandu, after sending away his attendants, accompanied by his two wives and eating fruits and roots, went to the mountains of Nagashanta Nagasata. He next went to Chaitraratha and then crossed the Kalakuta, and finally crossing the Himavat, he arrived in Gandhamada. Protected by Mahabhuts, Siddhas, and great rishis, Pandu lived, O king, sometimes on level ground and sometimes on mountain slopes. He then journeyed on to the lake of Indra Yumna, wherein crossing the mountains of Hanshakuta, he went to the mountain of 100 peaks, Satasringa, and there continued to practice ascetic austerities. Section CXX. Sambhav Parva continued. Vaishampayana said, Pandu, possessed of great energy, then devoted himself to asceticism. Within a short time, he became the favorite of whole body of the Siddhas and the Charanas residing there, and to Bharata, devoted to the service of his spiritual masters, free from vanity, with mind under complete control and the passions fully subdued, the prince becoming competent to enter heaven by his own energy attained to great ascetic prowess. Some of the rishis would call him brother, some friend, while others cherished him as their son. And O bull of Bharata's race, having acquired after a long time great ascetic merit coupled with complete singleness, Pandu became even like a Brahma Brahmarshi, though he was a Kshatriya by birth. On a certain day of the new moon, the great rishis of rigid vows assembled together, and desirous of beholding Brahman were on the point of starting on the expedition. Seeing them about to start, Pandu asked those ascetics, saying, Ye first of eloquent men, where shall we go? The rishis answered, There will be a great gathering today in the abode of Brahman, of celestials, rishis, and pitris. Desirous of beholding the self create, we shall go there today. Vashampayana continued. Hearing this, Pandu rose up suddenly, desirous of visiting heaven along with the great rishis, accompanied by his two wives. When he was on the point of following the rishis in northerly direction from the mountain of 100 peaks, those ascetics addressed him, saying, In our northward march, while gradually ascending the king of mountains, we have seen on its delightful breast many regions inaccessible to ordinary mortals, retreats also of the gods and Gandharvas and Apsaras with palatial mansions by hundreds clustering thick around and resounding with the sweet notes of celestial music. The gardens of Kubera laid out on the even and uneven grounds, banks of mighty rivers and deep caverns. There are many regions also on those heights that are covered with perpetual snow and are utterly destitute of vegetable and animal existence. In some places, the downpour of rain is so heavy that they are perfectly inaccessible and incapable of being utilized for habitation. Not to speak of the other animals, even winged creatures can't cross them. The only thing that we can go there is air, and the only beings, siddhas and great rishis. How shall these princes ascend those heights of the king of mountains? Unaccompanied unaccustomed to pain, shall they not droop in affliction? Therefore, come not with us, O bull of Bharata's race. Bharata's race. Pandu replied, Yea, fortunate ones, it is said that for the sunless there is no admittance into heaven. I am sunless. In affliction I speak unto you. I am afflicted because I have not been able to discharge the debt I owe to my ancestors. It is certain that with the dissolution of this my body, with my ancestors perish. Men are born on this earth with four debts, with those due unto the deceased ancestors, the gods, the rishis, and other men. In justice, these must be discharged. The wives have declared that no reasons of bliss exist for them that neglect to pay these debts in due time. The gods are paid, gratified by sacrifices, the rishis by study, meditation, and asceticism, the deceased ancestors by begetting children and offering the funeral cake, and lastly other men by leading a human and inoffensive life. I have justly discharged my obligations to the rishis, the gods, and other men, but those others than these three are sure to perish with the dissolution of my body. Yeah, ascetics, I am not yet freed from the debt I owe to my deceased ancestors. I am best of manner born in this world to beget children for discharging that debt. I would ask you, should children be begotten in my soil upon my wives, as I myself was begotten in the soil of my father by the eminent Rishi? The Rishi said, O king of virtuous soul, there is progeny in store for thee, that is sinless and blessed with good fortune and like unto the gods. We behold it with we behold it all with our prophetic eyes. Therefore, O tiger, among men accomplish by your own acts that which destiny point at, men of intelligence acting with deliberation always obtain good fruits. It behoved thee, therefore, O king, to exert thyself the fruits thou wouldst obtain are distinctively visible, thou wouldst really obtain accomplished and agreeable progeny. Vashampayana continued. Hearing these words of the ascetics, Pandu, remembering the loss of his procreative powers owing to the curse of the deer, began to reflect deeply, and calling his wedded wife, the excellent Kunti, unto him, he told her in private, Strive thou to raise offspring at this time of distress. The wise the wise expounders of the eternal religion declare that a son, O Kunti, is the cause of virtuous fame in the three worlds. It is said that sacrifices, charitable gifts, ascetic penances, and vows observed most carefully do not confer religious merit on a sunless man. O thou of sweet smiles, knowing all this, I am certain that as I am sunless, I shall not obtain reasons of true felicity. O timid one, wretch that I was, and addicted to cruel deeds as a consequence of the polluted life I led my power of procreation health being destroyed by the curse of the deer. The religious institutes mention six kinds of sons that are heirs and kinsmen, and six other kinds that are not heirs but kinsmen. I shall speak of them presently. O Pritha, listen to me. They are first, the son begotten by one's own self upon his wedded wife. Second, the son begotten upon one's wife by an accomplished person from motives of kindness. Third, the son begotten upon one's wife by a person for pecuniary consideration. Fourth, the son begotten upon the wife after the husband's death. Fifth, the maiden born son. Sixth, the son born of an unchaste wife. Seventh, the son given. Eighth, the son bought for a consideration. Ninth, the son self given. Eighth, the son received with a pregnant bride. 11th, the brother's son. And 12th, the son begotten upon a wife of lower caste. On failure of offspring of a prior class, the mother should desire to have offspring of the next class. In times of distress, men solicit offspring from accomplished younger brothers. The self-born Manu Hal said that men, failing to have legitimate offspring to their own, may have offspring begotten upon their wives by others. Four sons confer the highest religious merit. Therefore, I, Kunti, being destitute myself of the power of procreation, I command three to raise good offspring through some person who is either equal or superior to me. O Kunti, listen to the history of the daughter of Sarandandayana, who was appointed by her lord to raise offspring. That warrior dame, when her monthly season arrived, bathed duly, and in the night went out and waited on a spot where four roads met. She did not wait long when a Brahmana crowd, crowned with ascetic success, came there. The daughter of Saradandayana solicited him for offspring. After pouring libations of clarified butter on the fire in the performance of the sacrifice known by the name of Punsavana, She brought forth three sons dead from mighty Kar warriors, and of whom Durjaya was the eldest, begotten upon her by dead Brahmana. O thou of good fortune, do they follow that warrior dame's example at my command, and especially raise offspring out of the seed of some Brahmana of high ascetic merit. Section CXXI. Sambhava Parva continued. Vaishnava Payana said. Thus addressed, Kunti replied unto her heroic lord, King Pandu, that bull amongst the Kurus, saying, O virtuous one, it behoveth thee not to say so unto me. I am, O thou lotus-eyed one, thy wedded wife devoted to thee, O Bharata, and mighty arms thyself shalt in righty genius beget upon the children endued with great energy. Then I shall ascend to heaven with thee, O prince of Kurus race, receive me in the embrace of for begetting children. I shall not certainly, even in imagination, accept any other man except thee in my embraces. What other man is there in this world superior to thee, O virtuous one? Listen to this Puranic narrative that had been, O thou of last others heard by me, and that I shall presently narrate. There was in ancient times a king in the race of Puru known by the name of Sava. He was devoted to truth and virtue, of virtuous soul and mighty arms. On one occasion, while he was performing a sacrifice, the gods with Indra and the great rishis came to him, and Indra was so intoxicated with the Soma juice he drank, and the Brahmas with the large presents they received, that both the gods and the great rishis began themselves to perform everything pertaining to that sacrifice of the illustrious royal sage, and thereupon Vyotisava began to shine above all men like the sun appearing in double splendor after the season of frost is over. And the powerful and the powerful Vyu Sitashva, who was endued with the strength of 10 elephants, very soon performed the horse sacrifice, overthrowing, O best of monarchs, all the king of the east, the north, the west, and the south, and exacted tributes from them all. There is an anecdote, O best of the Kurus, that is sung by all reciters of the Purans in connection with that first of all men, the illustrious Vyus Sitasva, having conquered the whole earth up to the coast of the sea, Vyu Sitashva protected every class of his subjects as a father does his own begotten sons. Performing many great sacrifices, he gave away much wealth to the Brahmanas. After collecting unlimited jewels and precious stones, he made arrangements for performing still greater ones, and he performed also the Agnish Toma and other special Vedic sacrifices, extracting great quantities of som juice. And O king, Vyu had for his dear wife Bhadra, the daughter of Shivat, unrivaled for beauty on earth, and it had been heard by us that the couple loved each other deeply. King Vyushitashva was seldom separated from his wife. Sexual excess, however, brought on an attack of phthisis, and the king died within a few days. Sinking like the sun in his glory, then Bhadra, his beautiful queen, was plunged into woe, and as she was and as she was sunless, O tiger among men, she wept in a great affliction. To Listen to me, O king, as I narrate to you all that Bhadra said, that bitter tears trickling down her cheeks. O virtuous one, she shed. Women serve no purpose when their husbands are dead. She who lived after her husband is dead, dragged on a miserable existence that can hardly be called life. O bull of the Kshatriya order, death is blessing too. Women without husbands, I wish to follow the way thou hast gone. Be kind and take me with thee. In the absence, I am unable to bear life even for a moment. Be kind to me, O king, and take me hence pretty soon. O tiger among men, I shall follow thee over the even and uneven ground. Thou hast gone away, O Lord, never to return. I shall follow thee. O king, as thy own shadow. O tiger among men, I will obey as thy slave, and will ever do what is agreeable to thee, and what is for their good. O thou of eyes like lotus petals, without thee, from this day mental agonies will overwhelm me and eat into my heart. A wretch that I am, sub-loving couple had doubtless been separated by me in a former life, for which in this life I am made to suffer the pangs of separation from thee. O king, that wretched woman who lived even for a moment separated from her lord, lived in woe and suffered the pangs of hell even here. Some loving couple had doubtless been been separated by me in a former life, for which sinful act I am suffering this torture arising from my separation from thee. O king, from this day I will lay myself down on a bed of kusha grass and abstain from every luxury, hoping to behold thee once more. O tiger among men, show thyself to me. O king, O lord, command once more thy wretched and bitterly weeping wife, plunged in woe. Kunti continued, it was thus, O Pandu, that the beautiful Bhadra kept over the death of her lord, and the weeping Bhadra clasped in her arms the corpse in anguish of heart. Then she was addressed by an incorporeal voice in these words: rise up, O Bhadra, and leave this place. O thou of sweet smiles, I grant thee this boon. I will beget offspring upon thee. Lie thou down, I with me on thy own bed. After the Cashmanial bath on the night of the 8th or the 14th day of the moon, thus addressed by the incorporeal voice, the chaste Bhadra did as she was directed for obtaining offspring. And O bull of the Bharatas, the corpse of her husband begat upon her 7 children, viz. 3 Salvas and 4 Madras. O bull of the Bharatas, do thou also beget offspring upon me, like the illustrious view Shitashva, by the exercise of the ecstatic power which thou possessed. Section CXXII Sambhava Parva continued. Vaishampayana said, thus addressed by his loving wife, King Pandu, well acquainted with all rules of morality, replied in these words of virtuous import: O Kunti, what thou hast said is quite true. Vyushit Ashva of old did even as thou hast said. Indeed, he was equal unto the celestials themselves. But I shall now tell thee about the practices of old indicated by illustrious rishis, fully acquainted with every rule of morality. O thou of handsome face and sweet smiles, women formerly were not immured within houses and dependent on husbands and other relatives. They used to go about freely, enjoying themselves and best as they liked. O thou of excellent qualities, they did not oath, however excellent qualities, they did not then adhere to their husbands faithfully, and yet, O handsome one, they were not regarded sinful, for that was the sanctioned usage of the times. That way usage is followed to this day by birds and beasts, without any exhibition of jealousy. That practice, sanctioned by precedent, is applauded by great rishis. O thou of Thapathais, the practice is yet regarded with respect amongst the northern crews. Indeed, that uses so lenient to women halt the sanction of the antiquity. The present practice, however, of women's being confined to one husband for life hath been established but lately. I shall then see in detail who established it and why. It it had been heard by us that there was a great rishi of the name of Ud Udalaka, who had a son named Shweta Ketu, who also was an ascetic of merit. O thou of eyes like lotus petals, the present virtuous practice had been established by that Shweta Ketu from anger. Here here thou the reason. One day in the presence of Shweta Ketu's father, a Brahmana came and catching Shweta Ketu's mother by the hand, told her, let us go. Beholding his mother seized by the hand and taken away apparently by force, the son was greatly moved by wrath. Seeing his son indignant, Udalakas addressed him and said, be not angry, O son. This is the practice sanctioned by antiquity. The women of all orders in this world are free. O son, men in this matter as regards their respective orders act as kind. The Rishi's son Swetaketu, however, disapproved of the uses and established in the world the present practice as regards men and women. It had been heard by us, O thou of great virtue, that the existing practice dates from that period among human beings, but not among beings of other classes. Accordingly, since the establishment of the present uses, it is sinful for women not to adhere to their husbands. Women, transgressing the limits assigned by the Rishi, became guilty of slaying the embryo, and men too, while ting a chaste and loving wife who, halt from her maidenhood, observed the vow of purity, became guilty of the same sin. The woman also who, being commanded by her husband to raise offspring, refuses to do so his bidding, becometh equally sinful. Thus, O timid one, was the existing uses established of old boy Swataketu, the son of Udalaka, in deficiency of antiquity. O thou of taper thighs, it had also been heard by us that Madhyanti, the wife of Swadasa, commanded by her husband to raise offspring, went on to Rishi Vasistha, and on going in into him, the handsome Madayanti obtained a son named Ashkama. She did this moved by the desire of doing good to her husband. O thou of lotus eyes, thou knowest, O timid girl, how we ourselves, for the perpetuation of the Kuru race, were begotten by Krishna Dwapayana. O faultless one, beholding all these precedents, it behoved thee to do my bidding, which is not inconsistent with virtue. O princess who is devoted to her husband, it hath also been said by those acquainted with the rules of morality that a wife, when her monthly season cometh, must ever seek her husband, though at other times she deserved liberty. The wise have declared this to be the ancient practice, but be the act sinful or sinless. Those acquainted with the Veds have declared that it is the duty of the wives to do what their husbands bid them to, especially, O thou of faultless features, I, who am deprived of the power of procreation, having yet become desirous of beholding offspring, deserve the more to be obeyed by thee. O amiable one, joining my palms furnished with rosy fingers and making of them a cup as of lotus leaves, I place them on my head to appropriate them thee. O thou of their lie looks, it behoved thee to raise offspring at my command, through some Brahmanas possessed of high ascetic merit, for then owing to thee, O thou of fair hips, I may go to the way that is reserved for those that are blessed with children. Vashampayana continued, thus addressed by Pandu, that subjugator of hostile cities, the handsome Kunti, ever attentive to what was agreeable and beneficial to her lord, then replied unto him, saying, in my girlhood, O lord, I was in my father's house and gagged in attending upon all guests. I used to wait respectfully upon Brahmanas of requisite vows and great ascetic merit. One day I gratitude with my attentions that Brahmana, whom people call Durvasha, of mind under full control and possessing knowledge of all the mysteries of religion, pleased with my services, that Brahmana gave me a boon in the form of a mantra, formula of invocation for calling into my presence of any one of the Kalashals I like. And the Rishi addressing me said, anyone among the Kalashals whom to Kali callest by this shall, O will approach thee and be obedient to thy will, whether he liked it or not. And to princes thou shalt also have offspring through his grace, O Bharata, that the that Brahmana told me this when I lived in my father's house. The words uttered by the Brahmana can never be false. The time also had come when they may yield fruit. Commanded by thee, O royal sage, I can by that mantra summon any of the celestials so that we may have good children. O foremost of all truthful men, tell me which of the celestials I shall summon. Know that as regards this matter I await your commands. Hearing this, Pandu replied, O handsome one, strive duly this very day to gratify our wishes. Fortunate one, summon to the God of justice. He is the most virtuous of the celestials. The God of justice and virtue will never be able to pollute us with sin. The world also, O beautiful princess, will then think that what we do can never be unholy. The son also that we shall obtain from his shall in virtue be certainly the foremost among the Kurus. Begotten by the God of justice and morality, he would never set his heart upon anything that is sinful or unholy. Therefore, O thou of sweet smiles, steadily keeping virtue before their eyes and duly observing holy vows, summon thou the God of justice and virtue by the help of their solicitations and incantations. Vashampayana continued, then Kunti, the best of women, thus addressed by her lord, said, so be it. And bowing down to him and reverently circumambulating his person, She resolved to do his bidding. Section CXX triple I. Sambhav Parva continued. Vashampayana said, O Janmeja, when Gandhari's conception had been a full year old, it was then that Kunti summoned the eternal god of justice to obtain offspring from him, and she offered without loss of time sacrifice unto the god and began to duly repeat the formula that Durvasha had imparted to her some time before. Then the god, overpowered by her incantations, arrived at the spot where Kunti was seated in his car, resplendent as the sun. Smiling, he asked, O Kunti, what am I give thee? And Kunti, too smiling in her turn, replied, thou most even give me offspring. Then the handsome Kunti was united in intercourse with the God of justice in his spiritual form and obtained from him a son devoted to the good of all creatures. And she brought his excellent child, who lived to acquire a great fame, and the eighth Murta called Abhijit of the hour of noon of that very auspicious day of the seventh month Kartika, which the fifth of the lighted fortnight, when the star Jyeshtha in conjunction with the moon was ascendant. And as soon as the child was born, an incorporeal voice from the sky said that this child shall be the best of men, the foremost of those that are virtuous, endued with great prowess, and truthful in speech. He shall certainly be the ruler of the earth. And this first child of Pandu shall be known by the name of Yudhishthira. Possessed of prowess and honesty of the disposition, he shall be a famous king known throughout the three worlds. Pandu, having obtained a virtuous son, again addressed his wife and said, the wise have declared that a Kshatriya must be endued with physical strength, otherwise he is no Kshatriya. Therefore ask thou for an offspring of superior strength. Thus commanded by her lord. Kunti then invoked Vayu, and the mighty god of wind, thus invoked, came unto her riding upon a deer and said, what, O Kunti, am I to give thee? Tell me what is in your heart. Smiling in modesty, she said to him, give me, O best of celestials, a child endued with great strength and largeness of limbs, and capable of humbling the pride of everybody. The god of wind thereupon begat upon her the child afterwards known as Bhima, of mighty arms and fierce prowess, and upon the birth of that child endued with extraordinary strength and an incorporeal voice, O Bharata, as before said, the child shall be the foremost of all endued with strength. I must tell you, O Bharata, of another wonderful event that occurred after the birth of Vrakodara Bhima. While he fell from the lap of his mother upon the mountain breast, the violence of the fall broke into fragments of the store upon which he fell without his infant body being injured in the least. And he fell from his mother's lap because Kunti, frightened by a tiger, had risen up suddenly, unconscious of the child that lay asleep on her lap. And as she had risen, the infant of the body had, as the thunderbolt falling down upon the mountain breast, broke into 100 fragments the rocky mass upon which he fell. And beholding this, Pandu wondered much. And it so happened that very day on which Vrikodara was born and was also, O best of Bharatas, the birthday of Duryodhana, who afterwards became the ruler of the whole earth. After the birth of Vrakodara, Pandu again began to think how I am to obtain a very superior son who shall achieve worldwide fame. Everything in the world dependent on destiny and exertion, but destiny can never be successful except by timely exertion. We have heard it said that Indra is the chief of the gods indeed. He is endued with immeasurable might and energy and prowess and glory. Gratifying him with my asceticism, I shall obtain from him a son of great strength indeed. The son he gives me must be superior to all and capable of vanquishing in battle all men and creatures other than man. I shall therefore practice the severest austerities with heart, deed, and speech. After this, the Kuru king Pandu, talking counsel with the great rishis, commanded Kunti to observe an auspicious vow for 1 full year. While he himself commenced, O Bharata, to stand upon one leg from morning to evening, and practice other sever austerities with mind wrapped in meditation for gratifying the Lord of Celestials. It was after a long time the Indra, gratified with such a devotion, approached Pandu and addressing him said, I shall give thee, O king, a son who will be celebrated all over the three worlds and who will promote the welfare of Brahmans, kind, and all honest men. Thus shall I shall give thee will be the smiter of the wicked and the delight of friends and relatives. Foremost of all men, he will be an irresistible slayer of all foes. Thus addressed by Vasava, the king of the Celestials, the virtuous king of Kuru race, well recollecting those words, said unto Kunti, O fortunate one, thy woe halt become unsuccessful. The Lord of the Celestials halt been gratified and is giving and is willing to give thee a son such as thou desirest of superhuman achievements and great fame. He will be the oppressor of all enemies and possessed of great wisdom, endued with the great soul in splendor equal unto the sun, invincible in battles and of great achievements. He will also be extremely handsome, O thou of fair hips and sweet smiles. The Lord of the Celestials halt become gracious to thee. Invoking him, bring thou forth a child who will be the very home of all Kshatriya's virtues. Vashampayana continued, the celebrated Kunti, thus addressed by her lord, invoked Sakra, the king of the gods, who thereupon came in unto her and begat him that was afterwards called Arjun. And as soon as the child was born, an incorporeal voice, loud and deep as that of the clouds and filling the whole Valkin, distinctly said, addressing Kunti in the hearing of every creature dwelling in that asylum, this child of thine, O Kunti, will be equal unto Kartavirya in energy and Shiva in prowess. Invincible like Sakra himself, he will spread the fame far and wide. As Vishnu, the youngest of Aditi's son, had enhanced Aditi's joy, so shall this child enhance your joy. Subjugating the Madras, the Kurus, along with the Somakas, and the people of Chedi, Kashi, and Karusha. He will maintain the prosperity of the crews, surefeited with libations at the sacrifice of the king Shwetaketu. Agni will derive great gratification from the fate of all creatures dwelling in the Khandava's woods, to be burnt down by the might of this one's arm. This mighty hero, when kissing all the effeminate monarchs of the earth, will with his brothers perform three great sacrifices in prowess. O Kunti, he will be even as Janmadagnya or Vishnu, the foremost of all men endued with prowess. He will achieve great fame. He will gratify in battle by his heroism Shankara, the god of gods Mahadev, and will receive from him the great weapon named Pushpapata. Thus, the son of mighty arms, will also slay at the command of Indra those Daityas called the Nivadakavachas, who are the enemies of the gods. He will also acquire all kinds of celestial weapons, and this bull among men will also retrieve the fortunes of his race. Kunti heard these extraordinary words while lying in the room, and hearing those words uttered so loudly, the ascetics dwelling on the mountain of 100 peaks and the celestials with Indra sitting in their cars becomes exceedingly glad. The sounds of the invisible drum filled with the entire Valkin. There was shouts of joy, and the whole region was covered with flowers shot down by invisible agents. The various tribes of celestials assembled together began to offer their respectful adorations to the son of Pratha. The sons of Kadru, Naks, the son of Vinata, the Gandharvas, the lords of the creation, and the seven great rishis Bhardwaj, Kashyapa, Gautama, Vishwamitra, Janmadagni, Vasishtha, and the illustrious Atri, who illumined the world of old when the sun was lost, all came there, and Marichis, Angiras, Pulasya, Pulahu, Karatu, Daksha, the lord of creation, the Gandharvas, and the Apsaras came there also. The various tribes of Apsaras, decked with celestial garlands and every ornament and attired in fine robes, came there and danced in joy, chanting the praises of Bhivatshu Arjun. All around, the great rishis began to utter propitiatory formulas, and Tumvru, accompanied by the Gandharvas, began to sing in charming notes. And Bhimsena and Ugrasena, Umayus and Anagha, Gopati and Dhritarashtra and Suryavarchas, the eighth Yugapa and Trinapa, Karshini, Nandi and Chitraratha, Salishraha, the 13th, Parjanya, the 14th, Kali, the 15th, and Narada, the 16th in this list. Vrahata, Vrahaka, Karala of great soul, Brahmacharin, Vahuguna, Suvarna of great fame, Vishvavashu, Bhumayu, Suchandra, Sam, and the celebrated tribes of Haha and Huhu, gifted with wonderful melody of voice. These celestial Gandharvas, O king, all went there. Many illustrious Apsaras, also of large size, decked with every ornament, came there to dance and sing, and Anuchana and Anavadhyaya, Gunamukhya and Gunavara, Adrika and Soma, Miss Rakeshi and Alambusha, Marichi and Suchika, Vidyutparna and Tilotma and Ambika and Lakshmana, Chama Devi, Rambha, Manorma, Asita, Suvahu, Supriya, Supapuhu, Pundarika, Sugandha, Sursa, Pramathini, Kamya, and Saradvati all danced there together, and Menka, Sahajanya, Karnika, Punjikasthala, Ritushthala, Grahiticha, Vishvachi, Purvachiti, the celebrated Umlocha, Pramlocha, the 10th, and Urvashi, the 11th, these large eyed dancing girls of heavens, came there and sang in chorus, and Dharti and Aryaman and Mitra and Varuna, Bhaga and Indra, Vivasht, Pushan, Vatsri, and Parjanya or Vishnu, these 12 Adityas came there to glorify Pandu's son. And O king, Mragyavadya Sarpa, the celebrated Nriti, Ajaka Kapda, Aviradhana, Pinakin, Dahana, Ishvara, Kapalin, Thanu, and the illustrious Bhaga, these 11 Rudras also came there, and the twin Ashwins, the 8 Vashus, the mighty Marutis, the Devs, and the Sandhyas also came there, and Karkotaka, Vasuki, Kachappa, Kunda, and the great Nag Takshak, these mighty and wrathful snakes possessed of high ascetic merit, also came there, and Taraksha, Aristnemi, Garuna, Asist, Vaja, these and many other Nags also came there. So also Aruna and Aruni of Vinata's race also came there, and only great rishis crowned with ascetic success and not others saw those celestials and other beings seated in their casa waiting on the mountain peaks. Those best of Munis, beholding that wonderful sight, became amazed, and their love and affection for the children of Pandu was in consequence enhanced. The celebrated Pandu, tempted by the desire of having more children, wished to speak again unto his wedded wife for invoking some other god. But Kunti addressed him, saying, "The wise do not sanction a fourth delivery even in a season of distress. The woman having intercourse with four different men is called a Swaranini, Henton, while she having intercourse with five become the harlot. Therefore, O learned one, us who art well acquainted with the scripture on this subject, why dost thou be gilded by desire of offspring, tell me so in seeming forgetfulness of the ordinance." Section CXXIV. Sambhav Parva continued. Vaishampayana said, after the birth of Kunti's sons and also of the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra, the daughter of the king of Madras privately addressed the Pandu, saying, "O slayer of foes, I have no complaint even if thou beest unpropitious to me. I have a sinless one, also no complaint that though by birth I am superior to Kunti, yet I am inferior to her in station. I do not grieve. O thou of Kuru's race, that Gandhari halt obtained 100 sons. This, however, is my great grief, that while Kunti and I are equal, I should be childless. While it should be so chance that thou shouldst have offspring by Kunti alone. If the daughter of Kunti Bhoja should so provide that I should have offspring, she would then be really doing me a great favor and benefiting thee likewise. She being my rival, I feel a delicacy in soliciting any favor of her. If thou beest, O king, propitiously disposed to me, then ask her to grant my desire." Hearing her, Pandu replied, "O Madri, I do revolve this matter often in my own mind, but I have hitherto hesitated to tell thee anything, but not knowing how thou wouldst receive it. Now that I know what your wishes are, I shall certainly strive after that, and I think that asked by me Kunti will not refuse." Pashumpaina continued. After this, Pandu addressed Kunti in private, saying, "O Kunti, grant me some more offspring for the expansion of my race and for the benefit of the world. O blessed one, provide though that I myself, my ancestors, and thine also, may always have the funeral cake offered to us. O do what is beneficial to me, and grant me and the word that indeed is the best of benefits. O do what indeed may be difficult for thee." Moved by the desire of achieving undying fame, behold, Indra, even though he had obtained the sovereignty of the Kalashas, doth yet for fame alone perform sacrifices. O handsome one, Brahmans, well acquainted with the Veds, and having achieved high ascetic merit, do yet for fame alone approach their spiritual masters with reverence. So also all royal sects and brahmanas possessed of ascetic wealth have achieved for fame only the most difficult of ascetic feats. Therefore, O blameless one, rescue this Madri as by a raft, by granting her the means of obtaining offspring, and achieve though imperishable fame by making her a mother of children. Thus, addressed by her lord, Kunti readily yielded and said unto Madri, "Think thou, without loss of time, of some celestial, and thou shall certainly obtain from him a child like unto him." Reflecting for a few moments, Madri thought of the twin Ashwins, who coming into her with spit begat upon her two sons that were twins named Nakul and Shahdev, unrivaled on earth for personal beauty, and as soon as they were born, an incorporeal voice said, "In energy and beauty these twins shall transcend even the twin Ashwins themselves." Indeed, possessed of great energy and beauty, they illumined the whole region. O king, after all the children were born, the rishis dwelling on the mountain of 100 peaks, uttering blessings on them and affectionately performing the first rites of birth, bestowed appellations on them. The eldest son of Kunti's children was called Yudhishthira, the second Bhimasena, and the third Arjun. And of Madri's sons, the firstborn of the twins was called Nakula, and the next Sahadev. And those foremost sons, born at an interval of 1 year after one and another, beholding his children, or of celestial beauty and of for abundant energy, great strength and prowess, and of largeness of soul, rejoiced exceedingly. And the children became great favorites of the rishis, as also of their wives, dwelling on the mountain of 100 peaks. Some time after, Pandu again requested Kunti on behalf of Madri, addressed, O king, by her lord in private. Kunti replied, having given her the formula of invocation only once, she held, O king, managed to obtain 2 sons. Have I not been thus deceived by her? I fear, O king, that she will soon surpass me in number of her children. This indeed is the way of all wicked women. Fool that I was! I did not know that by invoking the twin gods I could obtain at one birth twin children. I beseech thee, O king, do not command me any further. Let this be the boon granted by thee to me. Thus, O king, were born unto Pandu 5 sons who were begotten by Calasius and were endued by with great strength, and who all lived to achieve great fame and achieved the Kuru race, each bearing every auspicious mark on his person, handsome like Soma, proud as the loin, well skilled in the use of the bow and of Leroin tread, breast, heart, eyes, neck, and prowess, those foremost of men, resembling the Calicials themselves in might, began to grow up, and beholding them and their virtues growing with years, the great rishis dwelling on the snow-capped sacred mountains were filled with wonder, and the 5 Pandavas and the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra, that propagator of the Kuru race, grew up rapidly like a cluster of lotuses in the lake. Section CXXV. Sambhav Parva continued. Vaishampayana said, beholding his 5 handsome sons growing up before him in that great forest on the charming mountain slope, Pandu felt the last might of his arms revive once more. One day in the season of spring, which maddens every creature, the king, accompanied by his wife Madri, began to rove in the woods where every tree had put forth new blossoms. He beheld all around pals and tilaks and mangoes and champaks and and parihadrakas and karnikaras, ashokas and keshras and atimuktas and kuruvaksh with swarms of maddened bees sweetly humming about. And there were flowers of blossoming parijats with the kokilas pouring forth their melodies from under where every twig echoing with the sweet hums of the black bees. And he beheld also various other kinds of trees bent down with the weight of their flowers and fruits. And there were also many fine pools of water overgrown with influence of desire. Roving like a glacier with a light heart amidst such scenery, Pandu was alone with his wife Madri in semi transparent attire, and beholding the youthful Madri thus attired, the king's desire flamed up like a forest fire, and ill able to suppress the desire thus kindled at the sight of his wife of eyes like lotus petals, he was completely overpowered. The king then seized her against her will, but Madri, trembling in fear, resisted him to the best of her might. Consumed by desire, he forgot everything about his misfortune, and, O thou of Kuru's race, unrestrained by the fear of the Rishi's curse and impelled by faith, the monarch, overpowered by passion, forcibly sought the embraces of Madri as if he wished to put an end to his own life. His reason, thus beguiled by the great destroyer himself by intoxicating his senses, was itself lost with his life, and the Kuru king Pandu, of virtuous soul, thus succumbed to the inevitable influence of time when united in intercourse with his wife. Then Madri, clasping the body of her senseless lord, began to weep aloud. And Kunti, with her sons and the twins of Madri, hearing those cries of grief, come to the spot where the king lay in that state. Then, O king, Madri, addressing Kunti in a piteous voice, said, come, hit her alone, O Kunti, and let the children stay here. Stay there. Hearing these words, Kunti bidding the children stay, ran with speed, exclaiming, woe to me! And beholding both Pandu and Madri lying prostrate on the ground, she went in grief and affliction, saying, of passions under complete control, this hero, O Madri, had all along been watched by me with care. How did he then, forgetting the Rishi's curse, approach thee with enkindled desire? O Madri, O Madri, this foremost of men should have been protected by thee. Why did thus thou tempt him into solitude? Always melancholy at the thought of Rishi's curse, how came he to be merry with thee in solitude? O princess of Valhika, more fortunate than myself, thou art really to be envied, for thou hast seen the face of our Lord suffused with gladness and joy. Madri then replied, saying, "Revered sister, with tears in my eyes, I resisted the king, but he couldn't control himself, bent on as it were making the Rishi's curse true." Kunti then said, "I am the older of his wedded wives. The chief religious merit must be mine. Therefore, O Madri, prevent me not from achieving that which must be achieved. I must follow our Lord to the reason of the dead. Rise up, O Madri, and yield me his body." Dear though these children, Madri replied, saying, "I do clasp our Lord yet, and have not allowed him to depart. Therefore I shall follow him. My appetite hath not been appeased, though art my older sister. Oh, let me have the sanction." This foremost one of the Bharata's princes had approached me, desiring to have intercourse. His appetite unsatiated, shall I not follow him in the region of Yama to gratify him? O reversed one, if I survive thee, it is certain I shall not be able to rear the children as if they were mine. Will not sin touch me on that account? But thou, O Kunti, shall be able to bring my sons up as if they were them. The king, in seeking me wishfully, had gone to the region of spirits. Therefore, my body should be burnt with his. O revered sister, withhold not thy sanction to this which is agreeable to me. Thou wilt certainly bring up the children carefully. That indeed would be very agreeable to me. I have no other direction to give. Vashampaina continued. Having said this, the daughter of the king of Madras, the wedded wife of Pandu, ascended the funeral pyre of her lord, then bull among men. Section CXXVI. Sambhava Parva continued. Vashampaina said, "The godlike rishis, wise in counsels, beholding the death of Pandu, consulted with one another and said, the virtuous and renowned King Pandu, abandoning both sovereignty and kingdom, came hither for practicing ascetic austerities and resigned himself to the ascetics dwelling on the mountain. He hath hence ascended to heaven, leaving his wife and infant sons as a trust in our hands. Our duty now is to repair to his kingdom with these his offspring and his wife." Vashampayana continued. Then those godlike rishis of magnanimous hearts and crowned with ascetic success, summoning one another, resolved to go to Hastinapur with Pandu's children ahead, desiring to place them in the hands of Bhishma and Dhritarashtra. The ascetics set off that very moment, taking with them those children and Kunti and the two dead bodies. And though unused to toil all her life, the affectionate Kunti now regarded as very short the really long journey she had to perform. Having arrived at Karu Jangla within a short time, the illustrious Kunti presented herself at the principal gate. The ascetics then charged the porters to inform the king of their arrival. The man carried the message in a trice to the court, and the citizens of Hastinapur, hearing of the arrival of thousands of Charanas and Munis, were filled with wonder. And it was soon after sunrise that they began to come out in numbers with their wives and children to behold those ascetics, seated in all kinds of cars and conveyances by thousands. Vast numbers of Kshatriyas with their wives and Brahmans with their came out, and the concourse of Vaishyas and Sudra too was as large on the occasion. The vast assemblage was very peaceful, for every heart then was inclined to piety. And there also came out Bhishma, the son of Santanu, and Somdatta or Valhika, and the royal sage Dhritarashtra, endued with the vision of knowledge, and Vidura himself, and the venerable Shatavati, and the illustrious princes of Kaushala and Gandhari, accompanied by the other ladies of the royal household, and the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra, decked with various ornaments, also came out. The Kauravas then, accompanied by their priests, saluted the rishis by lowering their heads and took their seats before them. The citizens also saluting the ascetics and bowing down unto them with touching the ground, took their seats here. Then Bhishma, stating that vast concourse perfectly stood, duly worshipped, O king, those ascetics by offering them water to wash their feet with and the customary aragya. And having done this, he spoke unto them about the sovereignty and the kingdom. Then the oldest of the ascetics, with matted locks on the head and irons covered with animal skin, stood up, and with the concurrence of the other rishis spoke as follows. You all know that the possessor of the sovereignty of the Kurus, who was called King Pandu, had, after abandoning the pleasures of the world, repaired hence to dwell on the mountain of 100 peaks. He adopted the brahmacharya mode of life, but for some inscrutable purpose the gods have in view this. His eldest son Yudhishthira was born there and begotten by Dharma himself. Then that illustrious king obtained from Vayu this other son, the foremost of all mighty men, called Bhima. This other son, begotten upon Kunti by Indra, is Dhananjaya, whose achievements will humble all bowmen in the world. Look here again at these tigers among men, mighty in the use of bow, the twin children begotten upon Madri by their twin Ashwins, leading in righty genius the life of a Vanprasth in the woods. Illustrious Pandu Halth thus revived the almost extinct line of his grandfather. The birth, growth, and Vedic studies of these children of Pandu will, no doubt, give you great pleasure, steadily adhering to the path of the virtuous and the wise, and leaving behind him these children. Pandu departed hence 17 days ago. His wife Madri, beholding him placed in the funeral pyre and about to be consumed, herself ascended the same pyre and sacrificing her life, thus held gone with her lord to the region reserved for chaste wives. Accomplished now where the rites should be performed for their benefit. These are the unburnt portions of their bodies. Here also are their children, these operations of foes with their mother. Let these be now received with due honors. After the completion of the first rites in honor of the dead, let the virtuous Pandu, who had all among been the supporter of the dignity of the Gurus, have the first annual Shraddha Shakindakarana performed with a view to installing him formally among the Pitras. Vaishampayana continued the ascetics with Guhuyaka's loving said this unto the Kurus instantly disappeared in the very sight of the people, and beholding the rishis and the siddhas thus vanish in their sight like vapory forms appearing and disappearing in the skies, the citizens filled with wonder returned to their homes. Section CXXVII. Sambhava Parva continued. Vashampayana continued. Dhritarashtra then said, O Vidura, celebrated the funeral ceremonies of that line among kings, with Pandu and of Madri also in right royal style, for the good of their souls, distributed cattle, cloths, gems, and diverse kinds of wealth, everyone receiving as much as he asked for. Make arrangements also for Kunti's performing the last rites of Madri in such a style as please her, and let Madri's body be so carefully wrapped up that neither the sun nor Vayu, god of wind, may behold it. Lament not for the sinless Pandu. He was a worthy king, and Halth left behind him 5 heroic sons equal unto the celestial themselves. Vashimpayana continued. Then Vindura, O Bharat, saying, so be it, in consultation with Bhishma, fix upon a sacred spot for the funeral rites of Pandu. The family priest went out of the city without loss of time, carrying with them the blazing sacred fire laid with clarified butter and rendered fragrant therewith. Then friends, relatives, and adherents, wrapping it up in the cloth, decked the body of the monarch with the flowers of the season and sprinkled various excellent perfumes over it. And they also decked the hearse itself with garlands and rich hangings. Then, placing the covered bodies of the king with that of his queen on that excellent bier decked out so brightly, they caused it to be carried on human shoulders, with the white umbrella of state held over the hearse with waving yak tails and sounds of various musical instruments. The whole scene looked bright and grand. Hundreds of people began to distribute gems among the crowd on the occasion of the funeral rites of the king. At length, some beautiful robes and white umbrellas and larger yak tails were brought for the great ceremony. The priests, clad in white, walked in the van of the procession, pouring libations of clarified butter on the sacred fire blazing in an ornamental vessel. And Brahmans, the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas and Shudras with thousands followed the deceased king, loudly wailing in these essence. O Prince, where those thou go, leaving us behind and making us forlorn and wretched forever. And Bhishma and Vidura and the Pandavas also all wept aloud. At last they came to a romantic wood on the banks of the Ganga. There they laid down the hearse on which the truthful and loyal-hearted prince and his spouse lay. Then they brought water in many golden vessels, washed the prince's body, besmeared before with several kinds of fragrant paste, and again smeared it over with sandal paste. Then they dressed it in a white dress made of indigenous fabrics, and with the new suit on, the king seemed as if he was living and only sleeping on a costly bed. When the other funeral ceremonies also were finished in consonance with the directions of the priest, the Kauravas set fire to the dead bodies of the king and the queen, bringing lotuses, sandal paste, and other fragrant substances to the pyre. Then, seeing the bodies aflame, Kaushalya burst out, "O my son," and fell down senseless on the ground. After seeing her down, the citizens and the inhabitants of the provinces began to wail from grief and affection for their king, and the birds of the air and the beasts of the field were touched by the lamentations of Kunti and Bhishma, the son of Shantanu. and the wise Vidura and the others also that were there became disconsolate. Thus, weeping Bhishma, Vidura, Dhritarashtra, the Pandavas, and the crew ladies all performed the watery ceremony of the king. And when all this was over, the people themselves, filled with sorrow, began to console the bereaved sons of Pandu, and the Pandavas with their friends began to sleep on the ground. Seeing this, the Brahmans and the other citizens also renounced their beds, young and old. All the citizens grieved on account of the sons of King Pandu and passed 12 days in mourning with the weeping Pandavas. Section CXXV triple I. Sambhav Parva continued. Vashampayana said, then Bhishma and Kunti with their friends celebrated the Shraddha of the deceased monarch and offered the Pind. And they feasted the Kauravas and the thousands of Brahmans, into whom they also gave gems and lands. Then the citizens returned to Hastinapur with the sons of Pandu, now that they had been cleansed from the impurity incident to the demise of their father. All then fell to weeping for the departed king. It seemed as if they had lost one of their own kin. When the Shraddha had been celebrated in the manner mentioned above, the venerable Vyas, seeing all the subjects sink in grief, said one day to his mother Satyavati, Mother, our days of happiness have gone by and days of calamity have succeeded. Sin began to increase day by day. The world health, good old, the empire of the Kauravas will no longer endure because of wrong and oppression. Go thou then into the forest and devote thyself to contemplation through yoga. Henceforth, society will be filled with deceit and wrong. Good work will cease. Do not witness the annihilation of the race in your old age. Questioning in the words of Vyas, Satyavati entered the inner apartments and addressed her daughter-in-law saying, O Ambika, I hear that in consequence of the deeds of your grandsons, this Bharat dynasty and its subjects will perish. If you permit, I would go to forest with Kaushalya, so grieved at the loss of her son. O king, saying this, the queen, taking the permission of the Bhishma, also went to the forest, and arriving there with her two daughters-in-law, she became engaged in profound contemplation, and in good time leaving her body ascended to heaven. Vaishampayana continued. Then the sons of King Pandu, having gone through all the purifying rites prescribed in the Veds, began to grow up in princely style in the home of their father. Whenever they were engaged in play with the sons of Dhritarashtra, their superiority of strength became marked. In speed in striking the objects aimed at, in consuming articles of food and scattering dust, Bhimsena beat all the sons of Dhritarashtra. The son of the wind god pulled them by the hair and made them fight with one another, laughing all the while. And Vrakadora easily defeated those 101 children of great energy as if they were one instead of being 101. The second Pandav used to seize them by the hair and throwing them down to drag them along the earth. By this, some had their knees broken, some their heads, and some their shoulders. That youth, sometimes holding 10 of them, drowned them in water till they were nearly dead. When the sons of Dhritarashtra got up by the boughs of a tree for plucking fruits, Bhim used to shake that tree by striking it with his foot so that down came the fruits and the fruit pluckers at the same time. In fact, those princes were no match for Bhim in pugilistic encounters, in speed or in skill. Bhim used to make a display of his strength by thus tormenting them in childlessness, not from malice. Seeing these wonderful exhibitions of the might of Bhim, the powerful Duryodhana, the eldest son of Dhritarashtra, began to conceive hostility towards him. And the wicked and unrighteous Duryodhana, through ignorance and ambition, prepared himself for an act of sin. He thought, there is no other individual who can compare with Bhim, the second son of Pandu, in point of prowess. I shall have to destroy him by artifice. Singly, Bhim dares a century of us to the combat. Therefore, when he shall sleep in the garden, I shall throw him into the current of the Ganga. Afterwards, confining his oldest brother Yudhishthira and his younger brother Arjun, I shall reign sole king without molestation. Determined thus, the wicked Duryodhan was ever on the watch to find out an opportunity for injuring Bhim. And to Bharata, at length, at a beautiful place called Pramankoti on the banks of the Ganga, he built a palace decorated with hangings of broadcloth and other rich stuffs, and he built this palace for sporting in the water there, and filled it with all kinds of entertaining things and choice viands. Gay flags waved on the top of this mansion. The name of the house was the Water Sport House. Skillful cooks prepared various kinds of wines. When all was ready, the officers gave intimation to Duryodhan. Then the evil-minded prince said unto the Pandavas, let us all go to the banks of the Ganga, graced with trees and crowned with flowers, and sport there in the water. And upon Yudhishthira Agreeing to this, the sons of Dhritarashtra taking the Pandavs with them, mounted country-born elephants of great size in cars resembling towns and left the metropolis. On arriving at the palace, the princes dismissed their attendants and, surveying the beauty of the gardens and roofs, entered the palace like lions entering their mountain caves. On entering, they saw that the architects had handsomely pasted the walls and the ceilings, and that painters had painted them beautifully. The windows looked very graceful, and the artificial fountains were splendid. Here and there were tanks of pellucid water in which bloomed forest of lotuses. The banks were decked with various flowers whose fragrances filled the atmosphere. The Kauravas and the Pandavas sat down and began to enjoy the things provided for them. They became engaged in play and began to exchange morsels of food with one another. Meanwhile, the wicked Duryodhana had mixed a powerful poison with a quantity of food, with the object of making away with Bhim. That wicked youth, who had nectar in his tongue and a razor in his heart, rose at length and in a friendly way fed Bhima largely with that poisoned food, and thinking himself lucky in having compassed his end, was exceedingly glad at heart. Then the sons of Dhritarashtra and Pandu together became cheerfully engaged in sporting in the water. Their sport having been finished, they dressed themselves in white habiliments and decked themselves with various ornaments. Fatigued with play, they felt inclined in the evening to rest in the pleasure house belonging to the garden. Having made the other youths take exercises in the waters, the powerful second Pandav was excessively fatigued, so that on rising from the water he lay down on the ground. He was weary and under the influence of the poison, and the cool air served to spread the poison over all his frame, so that he lost his senses at once. Seeing this, Duryodhana bound him with cords of shrubs and threw him into the water. The insensible son of Pandu sank down till he reached the Nag kingdom. Nags, furnished with fangs containing virulent venom, bit him by thousands. The vegetable poison mingled in the blood of the son of the wind was neutralized by the snake poison. The serpents had bitten all over his frame except his chest, the skin of which was so tough that their fangs could not penetrate it. Oh, regaining consciousness, the son of Kunti burst his bands and began to press the snakes down under the ground. A remnant fled for life, and going to their king Vasuki, represented, O king of snakes, a man drowned under the water, bound in cords of shrubs. Probably he had drunk poison, for when he fell amongst us, he was insensible. But when we began to bite him, he regained his senses and, bursting his fetters, commenced laying at us. May it please your majesty to inquire who is. Then Vasuki, in accordance with the prayer of the inferior Nagas, went to the place and saw Bhimsen. Of the serpents, there was one named Arakya. He was the grandfather of the father of Kunti. The lord of serpents saw his relative and embraced him. Then Vasuki, learning all, was pleased with Bhim and said to Arakya with satisfaction, How are we to please him? Let give him money and gems in profusion. On hearing the words of Vasuki, Arakya said, O king of serpents, when your majesty is pleased with him, no need of wealth for him. Permit him to drink of Rasakundra, nectar vessels, and thus acquire immeasurable strength. There is the strength of 1,000 elephants in each one of those vessels. Let this prince drink as much as he can. The king of serpents gave his consent, and the serpents thereupon began auspicious rites. Then, purifying himself carefully, Bhimsena, facing the east, began to drink nectar. At one breath, he quaffed off the contents of a whole vessel, and in this manner drained off 8 successive jars till he was full. At length, the serpents prepared an excellent bed for him, on which he lay down at ease. Section CXXIX Sambhav Parva continued. Vashampayana said, Meanwhile, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, after having thus sported there, set out without Bhim for Hastinapur, some on horses, some of elephants, while others preferred carts and other conveniences. And on their way, they said to one another, Perhaps Bhim had gone before us, and the wicked Duryodhana was glad at here to miss Bhim and enter the city with his brothers in joy. The virtuous Yudhishthira, himself unacquainted with vice and wickedness, regarded others to be as honest as himself. The eldest son of Pratha, filled with fraternal love, going unto his mother, said, after making obeisance to her, O mother, halt Bhim come. O good mother, I don't find him here. Where may he have gone? We long sought for him every day, everywhere, in the gardens and the beautiful woods, but found him nowhere. At length we thought that the heroic Bhim preceded us all. O illustrious dame, we came here in great anxiety. Arrived here, where had he gone? Have you sent him anywhere? Oh, tell me, I am full of doubts respecting the mighty being. He had been asleep and had not come. I conclude he is no more. Hearing these words of the highly intelligent Yudhishthira, Kunti shrieked in alarm and said, Dear son, I have not seen Bhim. He did not come to me. Oh, return in haste and with your brothers search for him. Having said this in affliction to her eldest son, she summoned Vidura and said, O illustrious Kshatriya, Bhimsena is missing. Where has he gone? The other brothers have all come back from the gardens. Only Bhim of mighty arms doesn't come home. Duryodhana likes him not. The Kauravas is crooked and malicious and low-minded and imprudent. He covets the throne openly. I am afraid he may have, in fit of anger, slain my darling. This afflicts me sorely indeed. It burns my heart. Vidura replied, Blessed day. Say not so. Protect the other sons with care. If the wicked Duryodhana be accused, he may slay the remaining sons. The great sage had said that all the sons will be long lived. Therefore, Bhim will surely return and gladden the hurt. Vashampayana continued. The wise Vidur, having said this unto Kunti, returned to his abode, while Kunti, in great anxiety, continued to stay at home with her children. Meanwhile, Bhimsen awoke from dead slumber on the eighth day and felt strong beyond measure in consequence of the nectar he had taken, having been all digested. Seeing him awake, the Nags began to console and cheer him, saying, O thou of mighty arms, the strength giving liquor you had drink will give you the might of the 10,000 elephants. No one now will be able to vanquish you in fight. O bull of Kuru's rose, no, though bath in this holy and auspicious water and return home. Your brothers are did consolate because of you. Then Bhim purified himself with the bath in those waters and deckled in white robes and flowery garlands of the same hue, ate of the Paraman rice and sugar pudding offered to him by the Nags. Then that oppressor of all foes, decked in celestial ornaments, received the adorations and blessings of the snakes and saluting them in return, rose from the nether region, bearing up the lotus-eyed Pandava from under the waters. The Nags placed him in the self-same gardens, wherein he had been sporting and vanished him in his very sight. The mighty Bhimsen arrived on the surface of the earth, ran with speed to his mother, and bowing down unto her and his eldest brother, and smelling the heads of his younger brothers, that oppressor of all foes was himself impressed by his mother, and every one of those bulls among men, affectionate unto one another, they all repeatedly exclaimed, What is our joy today? Oh, what joy! Then Bhim endued with great strength and prowess, related to his brothers everything about the villainy of Duryodhana, and the lucky and unlucky incident that had befallen him in the word of the serpents. Thereupon Yudhishthira said, Do you observe silence on this? Do not speak of this to anyone. From this day, protect you all one another with care. Thus cautioned by the righteous Yudhishthira, they all with Yudhishthira himself became very vigilant from that day, and least negligence might occur on the part of the sons of Kunti. Vidura continually offered them sage advice. Some time after, Duryodhana again mixed in the food of Bhima a poison that was fresh, virulent, and very deadly. But Jujutsu, Dhritarashtra's son, by a Vaishya's wife, moved by his friendship for the Pandavas, informed them of this. Vrakdora, however, swallowed it without any hesitation and digested it completely, and though virulent, the poison produced no effects on Bhima. When that terrible poison intended for the destruction of the beam failed of its effect, Duryodhana, Karna, and Sakuni, without giving up their wicked design, had recourse to numerous other contrivances for accomplishing the death of the Pandavas. And though every one of these contrivances was fully known to the Pandavas, yet, in accordance with the advice of Vidura, they suppressed their indignation. Meanwhile, the king Dhritarashtra, beholding the Kuru princes passing their time in idleness and growing naughty, appointed Gautam as their preceptor and sent them unto him for instruction. Born among a clump of health, Gautam was well skilled in the ways, and it was under him, also called Krapa, that the Kuru princes began to learn the use of arms. Section She XXX. Sambhav Parva continued. Janmeja said, O Brahma, it behoved thee to relate to me everything about the birth of Krapa. How did he spring from a clamp of health? Whence also did he obtain his weapons? Vashampayana said, O king, the great sage Gautam had a son named Sharadvat. This Sharadvat was born with arrows in hand or operation of voice. The son of Gautama exhibited great aptitude for the study of the science of weapons, but none for the other sciences. Sharadvat acquired all his weapons by those austerities by which Brahmans in student life acquire the knowledge of Veds. Gautam, the son of Gautama, by his aptitude for the science of weapons and by his austerities, made Indra himself greatly afraid of him. Then Oath of Cruz race, the chief of the gods summoned a celestial damsel named Janpadi and sent her unto Gautama, saying, Do you best to disturb the austerities of Gautama, repairing unto the charming asylum of Sharadvat. The damsel began to tempt the ascetic equipped with bow and arrows, beholding that Apsara of figure unrivaled on earth for beauty, alone in those woods and clad in a single piece of cloth. Sharadvat's eyes expanded with delight at the sight of the damsel. His bow and arrows and slipped from his hand, and his frame shook all over with emotion. But possessed of ascetic fortitude and strength of soul, the sage mustered sufficient patience to bear up against the temptation. The suddenness, however, of this mental agitation caused an unconscious emission of his vital fluid. Leaving his bow and arrows and deer skin behind, he went away, fleeing from the Apsara. His vital fluid, however, having fallen upon a clump of heath, was divided into two parts, whence sprang a children that were twins. And it happened that a soldier in attendance upon King Shantanu, while the monarch was out a hunting in their woods, came upon the twins, and seeing the bow and arrows and deer skin on the ground, he thought they might be offspring of some Brahmana, proficient in the science of arms. Deciding this, he took up the children along with the bow and arms and showed what he had to the king. Beholding them, the king was moved with pity and saying, Let these become my children, brought them to his palace. Then did first of men Shantanu, the son of Pratipa, having brought Gautama's twins into his house, performed in respect of them the usual rites of religion, and he began to bring them up and call them Kripa and Kripi, in allusion to the fact that he brought them for motives of pity. Kripa, the son of Gautama, having left his former asylum, continued his study of the science of arms in right earnest. By his spiritual insight, he learned that his son and daughter were in the palace of Shantanu. He thereupon went to the monarch and represented everything about his lineage. He then taught Kripa the four branches of the science of arms and various other branches of knowledge, including all their mysteries and reconciled details. In a short time, Kripa became an eminent professor of the science of arms, and the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra and the Pandavas, along with the Yadavas and the Vrashnis and many other princes from various lands, began to receive lessons from him in that science. Section C XXXI. Sambhava Parva continued. Vashampayana said, desirous of giving his grandsons a superior education, Bhishma was on the lookout for a teacher endued with energy and well skilled in the science of arms, deciding, O chief of Bharatas, that none who was not possessed of great intelligence, none who was not illustrious or a perfect master of the science of arms, none who was not of godlike might, should be the instructor of the Kuru princes. The son of Ganga, O tiger among men, placed the Pandavas and the Kauravas under the tuition of Bharadwaja's son, the intelligent Drona, skilled in all the Veds. Pleased with the reception given him by the great Bhishma, that foremost of all men skilled in arms, which illustrious Drona of worldwide fame accepted the princes as his pupils, and Drona taught them the science of arms in all its branches. And, O monarch, both the Kauravas and the Pandavas, endued with immeasurable strength, in a short time became proficient in the use of all kinds of arms. Janmeda asked, O Brahmana, how was Drona born? How and whence did he acquire his name? How and why came he unto the Kurus? Whose son also was he endued with such energy? Again, how was his son Ashwithama, the foremost of all skilled in arms, born? I wish to hear all this. Please recite them in detail. Vashampayana said, There dwelt at the source of the Ganga a great sage named Bharadwaja, ceaselessly observing the most rigid vows. One day of old, intending to celebrate the Agnihotra sacrifice, he went along with many rishis to the Ganga to perform his ablutions. Arrived at the bank of the stream, he saw Gichitri herself, the Apsaras endued with youth and beauty, who had gone there a little before, with an expression of pride in her countenance, mixed with a voluptuous languor of attitude. The damsel rose from the water after her ablutions were over, and as she was gently treading on the bank. Her attire was, which was loose, became disordered. Seeing her attire disordered, the sage was smitten with burning desire. The next moment, his vital fluid came out in consequence of the violence of his emotion. The rishi immediately held it in a vessel called a throne. Then, O king, Drona sprang from the fluid thus preserved in that vessel by the wise Bharadwaja, and the child thus born studied all the Veds and their branches. Before now, Bharadwaja of great possesses prowess, and the foremost of those possessing a knowledge of arms, had communicated to all the illustrious Agnivesha a knowledge of the weapon called Agneya. A foremost one of Bharata's race, the rishis Agnivesha, sprung from the fire, now communicated the knowledge of that great weapon to Drona, the son of his precipitator. There was a king named Prishta who was a great friend of Bharadwaja. About this time, Prastha had a son born unto him named Drupa, and that bull among Kshatriyas was Drupa, the son of Prashata, used every day to come to the hermitage of Bharadwaja to play with Drona and study in his company. O monarch, when Prashita was dead, this Dropada of mighty arms became the king of the northern Panchals. About this time, the illustrious Bharadwaja also ascended to heaven. Drona, continuing to reside in his father's hermitage, devoted himself to ascetic austerities. Having become well versed in the Veds and their branches, and having burnt also all his sins by asceticism, the celebrated Drona, obedient to the injunctions of his father and moved by the desire of offspring, married Kripi, the daughter of Sharadvat, and this woman over ever engaged in witches' acts and the Agnihotra and the austerest of penances, obtained a son named Ashwathama. And as soon as Ashwathama was born, he neighed like the celestial steed Uchya Sharabas. Hearing that cry, an invisible being in the sky said, the voice of this child heard like the neighing of a horse, being audible all around. The child shall therefore be named by the name of Ashwathama, the horse voiced. The son of Bharadwaja, the throne, was exceedingly glad at having obtained that child. Continuing to reside in that hermitage, he devoted himself to the study of the science of arms. O king, it was about this time that Drona heard that the illustrious Brahmana Janmedagna, that slayer of foes, that foremost one among all wielders of weapons, versed in all kinds of knowledge, has expressed a desire of giving away all his wealth to Brahmans. Having heard of Rama's knowledge of arms and of his celestial weapons, also Drona set his heart upon them as also upon the knowledge of morality that Rama possessed. Then Drona of mighty arms, endued with high ascetic virtues, accompanied by disciples who were all devoted to those ascetic austerities, set out for the Mahindra mountains. Arrived at Mahindra, the son of Bhardwaja, possessed of high ascetic merit, beheld the son of Bhragu, the exterminator of all foes, endued with great patience and with mind under complete control. Then, approaching with his disciples that scene of the Bhragu, raised Drona, giving him his name, told him of his birth in the line of Angiras, and touching the ground with his head, he worshipped Rama's feet, and beholding the illustrious son of Janmadagni, intent upon retiring into the woods after having given Bharadwajas, but not in any woman's form. I am a Brahman of high birth, drawn by name, came to thee with the desire of obtaining the wealth. On hearing him, that illustrious grandeur of the Kshatriya race replied, thou art welcome, O best of regenerate ones, tell me what yours desirest. Thus addressed by Ram, the son of Bhardwajas, replied unto that foremost of all smiters, desirous of giving away the whole of his wealth. O you of multifarious woes, I am a candidate for the eternal wealth. O thou of ascetic wealth, returned Rama, my gold and whatever over wealth I had have all been given away unto Brahmans. This earth also, to the was of the sea, decked with towns and cities as with a garland of flowers, I have given unto Kashpaya. I have now my body only and my various valuable weapons left. I am prepared to give either my body or my weapons. Say, which you wouldst have, I would give it to you. Say quickly. Drona answered, O son of Bhragu, it behoved thee to give me all your weapons together with the mysteries of hurling and recalling them. Saying, so be it. The son of Bhragu gave all his weapons unto Drona, indeed the whole science of arms with its rules and mysteries, accepting them all, and thinking himself amply rewarded, the best of Brahmanas, that glad at heart, set out for his friend Drupada.